Deputy City Clerk, are we good to begin? Good. Perfect. All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's City Council regular meeting for Monday, May 20th. We have a couple of study session topics for tonight. Up first is our Arapahoe County Health Department here to present an update on the Health Department. Not sure who's going to be kicking us off tonight, but good evening.
All right, how do I pull up the presentation? Clicker?
Clicker, and then you should be able to move it to the right. There we go.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So good evening. So great to be here. I'm Jennifer Ludwig. I'm the Public Health Director for Arapahoe County. And this evening, we are really excited to share with you some of the results of our first year in business as a new health department, and to talk to you this evening about our community health assessment, which we have been working on for over a year now, and some of those top results, and would really love to get your reflections of if that resonates, anything that might be missing, because our next steps are to start to prioritize those top issues and then develop a community health improvement plan in which we'll be working on for the next 5 years. And my colleague Heather and Alexa will be talking a little bit more about that. So first, Arapahoe County Public Health, we serve and we are here to protect and promote equity, health, and well-being of our community through evidence-based interventions, education, advocacy, and policy development. And we absolutely could not do this alone. We rely on all of our partners, such as you, and to be our partners in policy, to be our eyes and ears, and to really help link us to other community opportunities and stakeholders. So this is something, public health is absolutely not something that we do on our own, and we really value the partnership of Englewood and the work that we've been doing in this area. We do have 4 locations throughout Arapahoe County. One is in Englewood at Bellevue and Broadway. We have been there a long time, formerly Tri-County Health Department, and we continue to occupy that space as Arapahoe County Public Health, serving a wide range of individuals through programs and services such as immunizations, family planning, harm reduction, and our food supplemental program. And then we have 2 in Aurora, one at Altura Plaza and then one at Hampden and Chambers. And then our administrative office is in Greenwood Village. And that is one of our larger facilities, but we will also be moving out of that facility next summer when the lease is up, and we'll be moving to the Lima campus, which is at Arapahoe Road in Lima. So just wanted to share a little bit about last year and our first year as a health department, because I'm really proud of the work that we were able to accomplish in 1 year. We opened our doors on January 3rd, and we were seeing clients by January 4th. And this was before we even had all of our systems and computers set up. So we had a great year, and this helps also depict some of the breadth and depth of programs and services that we provide at the health department, which is very vast. But we issue birth and death certificates. Currently, we only do that. You can order them online, or you can come into our Greenwood Village office. We are hoping this summer to be able to open a second location in Aurora to make it more accessible for our clients and for people who are wanting to come in for a birth or death certificate but don't want to go to Greenwood Village. But we issued over 43,000 birth and death certificates last year. And we have a food protection program, so they inspect restaurants, grocery stores, cafeterias, anything with food, prepared food, we inspect to ensure the safety of that food. And we also do plan reviews. So for any restaurant or location that's looking to make a change to their kitchen, or they're opening a business, we review those plans to ensure that they meet all of the criteria. And we reviewed we reviewed 244 plan reviews. So there's lots of growth and development happening in Arapahoe County. We have 2 nurse home visit programs that go in and work. One works with first-time moms and stays with the family until the child is 2 years old. And the other one is a partnership with Human Services that we go in and work with cases that have been deemed a human service case. So we made 892 visits to homes last year. We have the second or third largest WIC client in Colorado. We're the third largest county, third largest health department. WIC is the Women, Infant, Children Food Supplemental Program. We have, on average, 11,000 families that we serve every month. We had appointments, over 67,000 appointments last year, and we see WIC clients out of 2 of our locations. And then environmental health, I did mention that they do the inspections, not just with food, but also water and child cares. Water being anything with a pool or a septic system. And we had close to 3,000 environmental health inspections last year. And we have a team that is responsible for responding to over 100 reportable diseases that have to be reported to the health department. There are 100 plus diseases that are required to be reported. We had 86 outbreaks, confirmed outbreaks that we responded to last year, and that is just something that's considered an outbreak. That's not the total number of investigations that we conduct. And investigations are, compared to previous years, in Arapahoe County, they're up 70%. So our team is very busy in this area. And then one of our pillar programs is immunizations.
You want to go in the office and document the kids.
And we gave over 8,000 vaccinations last year, both child and adult. And then something that's very important to us is being able to communicate with our clients in their native language and the language that they prefer. So we do a lot of investing into language line services or language access services. And we made almost 7,000 calls to language line last year. This year we've got 2 additional contractors that we can work with, but it's really important to us that we're able to communicate effectively with our clients. So we do invest into our staff and into contractors that can help us communicate with our clients. So now I am going to turn it over to Heather and talk a little bit about the process and our community health improvement plan. So thank you.
One second, Heather. We're still good on the presentation Zoom. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Sorry, go ahead, Heather.
Excellent. In addition to those very consistent programs and services, some of which Jennifer highlighted, we also spend time scanning the data, looking at emerging trends, and trying with our partners and what we're hearing from the community to identify areas that really need additional attention, where we can double down over a period of years to hopefully make a really significant difference. You might be aware that in 2008, Colorado passed a Public Health Revitalization Act. Part of the requirements related to that is for every public health entity, both the state health department and all local public health departments, to follow an assessment and planning process, which cycles every 5 years. And we, as Jennifer mentioned, we kicked that off last January with a significant amount of community engagement. In brief, some things to know about the assessment. We use the data to track issues, identify key priorities, and inform action moving forward. It results in a strategic plan that, results in a strategic plan that helps us articulate where we want to head, why we think logically the strategies we adopt will take us there, and be accountable by tracking and then communicating our outcomes. In terms of timing, this is a high-level overview of the timeline we've been following. As I mentioned, we kicked it off in January, meeting with lots of community partners, hearing what they're experiencing, what they're prioritizing, where they would like to see a lot of partnership from the public health department and other entities within the health system. We conducted surveys with partners, staff, decision makers, and took all of that information along with quantitative and qualitative data, some of which Alexa will be highlighting in just a moment, to come up with 6 key potential priority areas. At this point in the process, we are assessing capacity of ourselves and others within the system to identify, to help us narrow down and get to closer to 2 or 3 key priorities that will really be our guiding light for that extra attention over the next 5 years. So I'm going to pass it over to Alexa Escobar-Prias to talk through some of the data.
Good evening. My name is Alexa Escobar-Paez, and I'm the Senior Population Health Epidemiologist at Arapahoe County Public Health, and I'm grateful to share with you some of our findings from our community health assessment. So as mentioned, the aim of our community health assessment is to capture the health landscape of Arapahoe County, and we do that by gathering, analyzing, and reporting on data. The data used in this assessment is a combination of primary and secondary data, as well as some quantitative and qualitative. At the beginning of this process, we knew that it would be highly important to gather a variety of voices from communities and leaders. And so we did this, one of the ways that we did this is by utilizing the CDC Social Vulnerability Index. And what that is a tool that looks at various social determinants of health, such as income or access to reliable transportation, and assigns a vulnerability score to that census tract that reflects the vulnerability the people that live in those areas have for potential poor outcomes. Additionally, we also made deliberate efforts to reach those that are being affected by current public health concerns and communities that have been historically underrepresented or marginalized. Our survey was open from July to December of 2023, and we had 1,018 responses. Most of those came from residents, followed by partners, community leaders, and staff. We were very happy with this outcome. Next. So as we analyze the data, both from our research as well as our community engagement, these are the top issues that emerged. Topic of safety, which included aspects such as gun violence, suicide, homicide, injury prevention, neighborhood safety, interpersonal violence, and motor vehicle safety. Housing issues included access, affordability, safety, and homelessness. Food-related issues touched on cost, accessibility, and availability. Economic security included issues related to income, overall financial well-being, navigating assistance programs, and the impact on financial strains on well-being. Environmental issues included things such as air and water quality, green spaces and climate change, and lastly, access to physical and behavioral care, focus on availability and accessibility of providers, cost of care, insurance coverage, care for newcomers, and navigating the healthcare system. So for this presentation, we gathered just some meaningful data points on each of these topics for the county and where possible for Englewood. So the relationship between income and health status is well established, with higher incomes often associated with better health outcomes. From this graph, we can see that relationship. In 2022, in Arapahoe County, 4 in 10 people reported having excellent or very good health, making $25,000 a year of less, in comparison to 7 out of 10 people whose annual income was $75,000 or more, reporting their health as very good or excellent. Additionally, 1 in 5 people in Arapahoe County making less than $25,000 a year reported poor mental health. Let's move on to housing. For most of us, our incomes are directly related to our housing security, and data tells us that our wages are not keeping up with housing costs. According to the Housing Standard Act of 1937, it is not recommended that households spend more than 30% of their income on housing costs, leaving income for other expenses. So households that spend more than 30% of their income on housing are considered cost burden and are often needing to cut costs in other areas such as food and healthcare in order to make ends meet. In 2022, 53% of renters in Englewood and nearly 1 out of 5 homeowners were paying 30% or more on housing. And as you can see from this graph, renters are more likely to spend over 30% of their income on housing than homeowners. And so you may say, well, a solution to that is to enter the housing market. However, the financial barriers to entering housing markets currently are very high in comparison to just a few years ago. In June of 2023, the national sale price for a starter home, which are typically smaller homes meant for individuals that are entering the housing market, were up 45% from before the pandemic. In Englewood, the median home sale price in March of 2024 was up by 30% compared to March of 2020. So the rising cost of owning a home and increasing spikes in rent make it harder for people to avoid homelessness and increase the obstacles for those coming out of homelessness. Arapahoe County saw nearly 2 times the number of people experiencing homelessness in 2023 compared to 2020, with 52% experiencing unsheltered homelessness. Let's move on to safety. Safety is a key social determinant of health, and being safe from violence, discrimination, crime, and disease was highlighted by community members, staff, leaders as essential for happiness and well-being. Tonight, I'll focus on data that highlights insights into youth and their safety. So in Colorado, firearms are the leading cause of death associated with community violence, suicide, domestic violence, and targeted mass shootings. In Arapahoe County, between 2000 and 2022, there were 37 firearm-related homicides for youth ages 1 to 17. And in the map, you can see where these deaths were located and their concentration. Additionally, Healthy Kids Colorado survey data tells us that approximately 1 in 6 students reported missing school at least one day out of the past month due to feelings of unsafety. Together, these statistics invite us to discuss the topic of safety around youth in and out of school environments. Next is access to care. So easy, reliable, and culturally appropriate care is a fundamental human right, and it is the best way to mitigate the impacts of illness and maintain good health. So on this slide, we can see the state of Health First Colorado enrollment and renewal against the public health emergency unwinding backdrop. So looking at the graph, the bottom bar shows us the pre-pandemic average disenrollment rate, which closely aligns to the current public health emergency unwinding disenrollment rate. On one hand, these outcomes are not very different, which is a good thing. However, the Colorado Department of Health Care Policy and Finance is not satisfied with pre-pandemic outcomes and is currently implementing and encouraging short-term and long-term solutions to improve the overall eligibility process. The middle bars illustrate denials due to income and similar criterias, which are less than pre-pandemic outcomes. This is not unexpected. Again, the Colorado Department of Healthcare Policy and Finance said that they believe that a lot of people who enrolled in these services during the pandemic are likely not needing this type of coverage anymore because potentially they are receiving employer provided coverage. So it is great that it's decreased and it's not unexplained, it's expected. Now the top bar is where we are really looking at, which are procedural denials, and those are higher than historic pre-pandemic levels. So reducing inappropriate procedural denials is a priority. Enhance member outreach, improve automatic renewals, shorten renewal packets, and so on are examples of strategies implemented by the state to reduce inappropriate procedural denials. One of the many critical roles that public health plays in maintaining good health in our communities is through immunizations. Immunizations are highly effective and supported by robust medical and scientific research. In 2022, 86.8% of kindergartners in Colorado were vaccinated against measles, mumps, and rubella, the MMR vaccine. This is the lowest vaccination rate since 2017. In Englewood, 92.9% of kindergartners were vaccinated against the MMR vaccine. When we look at K through 12 data in the graph, we can see that polio and Tdap vaccines have the highest incomplete vaccination rates. Now, limited knowledge and disinformation or misinformation are some reasons for low vaccination rates. However, other reasons are difficulties in maintaining and attaining medical records, limited access to primary care, and lack of insurance. Let's move on to open spaces. The well-being of Arapahoe County residents depends on a plethora of factors, and among these is safe and accessible outdoor spaces. In our community engagement surveys, participants often express the importance and appreciation for safe and accessible outdoor spaces. Since 2014, approximately 13,000 acres of open space has been added to the county, a strategy that can improve health outcomes since depression and anxiety are 33% and 44% higher, respectively, in areas that are considered less green and compared to those with higher green areas. In Englewood, 95% of residents live within 10 minutes of a park. And then the last slide talks about food. So nutritious food is crucial to our survival and well-being. However, for many of us, it is how we connect with others, how we share, and how we take care of those we care about. That is why programs such as SNAP and WIC are fundamental for many Arapahoe County residents. In 2022, the SNAP assistance in the county totaled $14.4 million. And in 2023, the number of WIC participants exceeded the 2019 average, reversing the downward trend that we saw in 2022. In Englewood, WIC purchases in grocery store totaled approximately $700,000, and nearly 1 in 2 households receiving SNAP benefits have one person 60 years or older living in that home. That concludes the data portion of this presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions, or feel free to email me if you'd like to talk a little bit more about what I shared today.
Thank you very much for the presentation. Any questions from members of council?
I had one.
Go ahead, Member Wright.
Thank you so much. A lot of information. The one question I had is about the birth and death certificates. And it's a simple one, I hope. In order to receive that death or birth certificate, would that person have to have been born or die in Arapahoe County, or is that statewide?
Statewide. You can go to any county to get a birth or death certificate. So it's interesting, somewhat of a competitive business among health departments.
That's actually good to know.
Yeah.
Okay,
so
perfect.
you can come see us even if you don't need it for Arapahoe County. We can
Great,
help you.
fantastic. Thank you.
Yes. And we actually had just a couple of follow-up questions for you all that Heather.
So we've covered information primarily related to those 6 top areas that emerged from our assessment. Again, those were safety, housing, food, the environment, economic security, and access to care. And we'd love to open it up and hear from you how you're hearing about it from your constituents. Are there things you'd like to make sure that we're aware of? Do any of these issues offer greater opportunity for engaging with constituents and meeting their needs? We know there's a lot of terrific stuff happening, so we also want to make sure that if you've got exciting movements happening, we are definitely aware of those and connecting with them, like your Food Security Collaborative, for example.
Thank you for that. Member Russell, go ahead. I know that you had a question before.
Thank you. My question isn't necessarily about that. There are a couple of senior and public health buildings in Englewood. If somebody has a problem with bed bugs, who would they call and what would they do?
Yes, oftentimes we work with city zoning, depending on what the issue is. There was a concern, like last year, we had a harborage issue and rats. And so we partnered up with Englewood zoning to go out and work with the individual. When it comes to private property, oftentimes there isn't a lot that public health can do. And we may just make a referral. In your example of bed bugs, we could help make a referral to a company that can come in and help with that. But bed bugs are a nuisance, but they don't transmit disease. So what we really are concerned with is, say, if it's an apartment complex and they don't have running water or there's sewage backup, things that could cause illness or disease, we do have some jurisdiction over, but over private property, we don't often. But our environmental health program they have a lot of resources, there's a lot of information on our website, but we can also link to companies or businesses, as long as we try to keep our list up to date, but if a business goes out of business, sometimes we may not be aware of that, and we don't promote anyone over the other, it's just who we know about.
Okay, I appreciate that, and thank you. I mean, I suspected that bed bugs were nuisance, but in public housing or a senior citizen center, it becomes a problem for your neighbors, and they tend to be low income. The other problem that I had, this was actually during COVID, somebody at Simon Center had called me over. There was the dumpster wasn't set under where all the trash came down, and so there was garbage that had collected in there for a long time. And I called the health department, and it may have been out in Adams County at the time. They really would do nothing about it. And that is a health issue. Is there somewhere they could call here now that we have our own health department?
Yes, and I know the environmental health email address, I know it well because I email it myself a lot. It's ACEH, Arapahoe County Environmental Health, at arapahogov.com. And even if there's not anything like within our regulations that we have authority over, we often, if it's like a landlord issue, we'll work however we can to apply pressures or resources to try to get to resolution, especially if we are concerned about health hazard, even if it's nuisance. If it could escalate to health issues, we absolutely will apply pressure where we can.
Okay, I greatly appreciate that, and it's really good to hear that you are working with city zoning, because rats are a huge problem here in several areas.
Yeah. And hoarding can become, there's a lot of issues there, and so we are very aware and cognizant and trying also to link to other resources as needed.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the question.
Member Noonan-Camp?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you so much for the presentation. It's great to hear about the work that the county has been doing since this department started. I'm happy to provide some feedback that you requested, and then I have a couple of questions as well. I would say that all 6 of your issue areas resonate with me, and the issues that I identify and hear from constituents in the community. I would say the top 2 that I hear personally the most in Englewood are safety and housing. And I think on the safety side, we're doing some really great work in our police department around co-responders and our All Health Network partnership. We also have a restorative justice program and some of those alternative opportunities to both stabilize the community and increase our safety. And then on the housing side, in addition to some zoning changes that we made last year to our development code, we currently have an affordable housing task force that is working on a housing plan to present to council by the end of this year, looking at a lot of the housing issues that you mentioned, including for sale and home ownership issues. And then we're also looking through our Tri-Cities Homeless Action Plan network on transitional housing and permanent supportive housing, which is another big priority for us. So those are some of the things that I think for me and for this council that we've been talking about the most, although everything resonates. A couple questions for you all, I'll just say them both. One was obviously the county is big and the county is quite diverse geographically, density. I'm just curious how you're approaching the rural areas of the county versus the more densely populated urban areas. And then second, a lot of the issues that you raised having to do with children and early childhood well-being obviously would be great opportunities to partner with our school district, and I'm wondering how you're engaging with them.
So we have had the opportunity, we've been doing a lot more out in Bennett Byers area. And we met with them last week, the Bennett trustees, to ask the same questions, and safety and food are concerns for them. We do, we appreciate and value and love the diversity that we have in Arapahoe County. It does provide some challenges for public health with our limited resources. And as we think about our community health improvement plan and what we prioritize over the next 5 years, we won't be able to do something that hits every resident in Arapahoe County, but where do we look at, if it's safety, is that in one particular community or is it a component of safety across the county? So we are considering the diversity and geography as we look at our priorities, as well as the resources that it takes to focus on priorities. So we have had the opportunity to engage with and talk and understand the differences. And then the second question.
Are you engaging with the school district?
Oh, yes. We've been working with Cherry Creek, Aurora, Englewood, and Littleton.
Really
So
all of them.
we've been doing a lot around immunizations. So our nurses are going in and really focus on kiddos who are not up to date. So that's kind of been a great entry point, as well as opioid prevention and doing education, really talking with kids about the use of Narcan and reversal medications. So we've been doing a lot of work in that area too. But yes, we have been working with school districts and hoping that that continues to grow and improve.
One of our colleagues with us this evening, Leslie Levine, is on a population health team who does a lot of partnering in the schools also around tobacco prevention and control and vaping issues. We hear a lot about that and want to make sure that we're there helping with best practices, resources, education, physically being there when we can, also helping them with some of their tracking and data, co-authors on grant applications, you name it.
Great, thank you.
Member Ward.
I think that one of these things that resonates the most with me is access to care and health. I work in the gig economy as an independent contractor. My wife has been employed full-time, and recently she transitioned out of her job, and so we lost health insurance. COBRA for us is $2,300 a month. $2,300 a month. And I manage bureaucracies pretty well. I like to think that I navigate them pretty well. But when I look at this health insurance stuff, I can't make heads or tails of it. It's all gobbledygook. $10,000 deductible, what good does that do me when I could pay $2,300 a month and have full coverage? It doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think there's an opportunity there on the access side to ensure that people have continuity of care when they transition out of their employment and their employer-provided health insurance, and to help people who are entering a different phase of life, either going from traditional full-time employment into independent contractor work or the other way around, navigate the benefits and the health insurance and finding the care that they need and ensuring that they get the regular care that they need to make sure that they don't come down with some sort of chronic illness that costs everybody more money in the long run.
Thank you very much for that.
Member Wright.
Thank you. You mentioned something about Narcan. We had an event here a week ago, and some residents that are snowbirds had mentioned the city that they were at for the winter provides classes in the Narcan for the residents if they choose, because they do have a substance abuse issue in the city, which I think all bigger cities, well, not necessarily have to be a big city, is it's an issue. It's everywhere. Is that something that Arapahoe County offers? It's a request that I put out here in the city. Let's talk to the county also and ask about that, where citizens can say, hey, I'd like to carry Narcan so that if we see someone that overdoses, we can administer it and hopefully save a life. Does the city or the county offer that to the citizens?
We do have Narcan that we can give. We have an RV that we launched in February. It's called Prevention Point. We were able to get funding from the Colorado Opioid Abatement Council to purchase this brand new RV, and on board is our supplies of Narcan. We also are testing for HIV and other sexually transmitted infections. We do trainings. We don't hold regular classes, but if invited, we can go and do a training. And anytime, any place where we have the van or the RV, which is really targeting areas for that are, we know there's a lot of individuals who are unhoused or injecting drugs, so that we do our syringe exchange program to ensure that people have clean, safe needles and are disposing of needles appropriately so that they're not in our parks and in our streets. So that's what that program does. We are able to do trainings, we just don't hold regular trainings, but if invited or if there was a group that wanted us to come in and do a training on Narcan, we absolutely can do that.
Okay, I think that's something that maybe we can discuss. I think it'd be a great idea, especially when our residents are asking because they see it, and there's certain areas in the city where it's prevalent, so I think we should explore that. Thank you so much.
One other thing, I'm sorry, Heather, we just launched last week and continues. We have kiosks that have public health supplies. We're just generalizing what's in them, but right now we have COVID tests, sexual health supplies, and Narcan. So we're testing them right now to see what disappears quicker than others, to find out like what people are wanting. They are mostly in places where we would see people who congregate, who use drugs, or who are unhoused. But we're piloting it to see how well it goes, how quickly the supplies disappear, what it takes to restock them. But we do have 6 of them strategically placed throughout the county, and if it's popular and goes well, then we'll do more.
All right,
Go
ahead.
With grant funding, over the next year, we're also going to be launching an advisory board of individuals with lived experience to help make sure that we are consistently talking with folks who are experiencing substance use, helping us target our efforts, making sure that we are aware of the emerging issues and showing up where most needed.
All right, Member Prang, and then I'll finish with a comment as well, just to get to the next topic. But go ahead, Member Prang.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the presentation and the information and narrowing down these top areas. I think many cities would have a very similar list in comparison to ours. So just from my limited time on council, I definitely think, insecurity around housing and food and safety would be the areas that I hear the most about and that we hear the most about in public comment. I think, safety becomes an issue with those experiencing the insecurity of housing and food-related issues themselves, but we also are increasingly hearing that driving behaviors that then create a sense of safety issue for others out in our community. So safety definitely continues to come up in our conversations. I would also say that in the school communities, that safety definitely continues to be an issue. I was happy to hear you mention vaping as an issue. Definitely a constant conversation within Englewood schools, from what I know. And I think that poses, not only health safety for those that are using, but safety issues of, students that opt to not participate in those activities, accessing the restroom safely and feeling okay to do that. I would also mention that while we, don't see as many incidents where we're on lockdown or lockouts in our schools, every time that happens, it just has such a lasting impact on our kids. So I have a freshman in high school, and I know the last time they had a lockdown procedure, just being stuck in a storage closet and not knowing what was going on, drove lingering feelings of lack of safety, not only for the students, but also the students having concerns about their teachers. So I think that's definitely a continuing area to pay attention to. Thanks again.
Thank you.
I'll add to the comments, so everything that's been said. I'll also add economic security, just with the rising cost of everything and the limited disposable income that folks may have. Just what is available at the county potentially, to prevent going, not being able to pay the rent or those type of things. That's something that I hear of as well. The one thing that's not on your list that I do want to mention though is transportation. So there is once they're able to make it into Englewood, obviously they could access the trolley and get around that way. But sometimes they don't have they don't have their appointments within Swedish or Craig, so they have to find a way. And with RTD cutting back routes, that's when I hear about it the most. So how do we get them to where they need to be when public transportation doesn't allow for it? So I think there was good comments and feedback from members of council. Really appreciate you coming tonight. I'm not sure if there's anything you want to add at the very end, but go ahead, Ms. Ludwig.
Thank you so much for your time and your feedback. Really very much appreciate it and value your time. And we will be doing a large stakeholder meeting on June 25th. It'll be virtual, but that will be our next real true prioritization process. And then our Board of Health will select the final priorities. So really grateful for the time this evening and really appreciate your eyes and ears and helping us understand Englewood better. So.
Yeah, and thank you very much for all the work that you put in over the past couple of years and making it such a seamless transition from Tri-County to Arapahoe County. So really, really appreciate it, and thank you for all the work that you've done. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good rest of your evening.
Yeah, have a good evening. Up next is Director of Utilities and South Platte Renew, Peter Van Rye, and Deputy Director Sarah Stone, here to discuss the lead reduction program customer outreach. Yes.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, and I know we only have 18 minutes, so I'm not going to talk tonight. Sarah will.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight, I'm going to give the same presentation that I gave at Water Sewer Board last Tuesday. That's about the lead reduction funding and our plans for community outreach. So I'll first touch on the funding and then hit the outreach strategy and materials. So program funding, just to give you an update on the loans, the Drinking Water Revolving Fund loans. The bipartisan infrastructure loan is for $17.6 million. $10 million of that will be, the principal forgiveness will go into effect at closing. The interest rate for that loan is 3.5%, and that's on that $7.55 million. And the term for that is 30 years. The leveraged loan, the bond was successfully sold on May 8th, 2024, so a few weeks ago. The deposit in our account will be about $22.4 million. The difference between that total loan amount and the amount that will be deposited in our account is just those closing costs and the underwriter fees. The interest rate for that bond is 4.5%. We get a 15% discount on that loan. So the all-in bond yield for that was 5.29% at sale. Again, it's a 30-year loan, and it was purchased by Raymond James and Associates. So how does that work for the lead reduction program? How do we allocate those funds? So first I'll give you a reminder of the water service line ownership. So the utility owns from the water main to the curb stop. For outside meter pit customers, we are working on that, as we discussed a few weeks ago, the utility taking ownership of that infrastructure, and then that ownership line would change to the meter pit to the home for a customer. And then when there's a curb stop, it's from the curb stop to the home for the customer. So if we take a look at just a representative line replacement for a single family home, these are the costs associated with it. The blue area of the circle there is the customer side replacement costs. So that's comprised of the potholing on the customer side as well as that line replacement. So it's about $2,600. And then on the right side of the circle, we've got the green costs, and that's the utility replacement side. That's about $4,700, and that comprises several other things like mobilization for the contractor, potholing other utilities so we don't hit anything as we're doing construction in the street there. The total lead service line count currently is about 3,000, so that's 175 verified lead, and then we have another almost 2,000 assumed lead, and then some unknown. So all of that kind of gives us our program of about 3,000 lines that we've been anticipating replacing. So how does that roll into the program cost? So this is just an example. This is taking really a typical installation where there's not a lot of traffic control, there's not a lot of street repair or water main replacement to get to these numbers as a program. So this number will change over time. Later tonight, we are discussing the contract for construction. That's 28 million. So there is some differences. We know this number will change, but we just wanted to give an example of what the program could look like if everything went really well. So the customer side program costs roll up to about $7.8 million. Then if we go clockwise, the next section there is the program management costs. We're estimating that to be about $3.2 million. That's also supported by the drinking water revolving fund loans. The bigger, still moving to clockwise, utility replacement costs. The residential replacement cost is estimated to be about $9.5 million for a typical installation. And then there's about 300 multifamily and commercial customers that we're anticipating that will need a lead line replacement. So it's about $1.8 million. And then we have other construction costs in there at about $2 million. The smaller chunk at the bottom is meter pit installations. That will be funded by WIFIA loan funds. We have one of our sub-projects is the meter modernization, and so that's where the funding for meter pit installation will go to. So if the program worked like this and it was about $27 million, there'd be a remaining drinking water revolving fund loan balance of about $12.8 million. So this is basically the same numbers as just shown in a table. So it shows the funding source, what the aspect of the program that funding source would be used for, and then the estimated amount. So as a reminder, we presented this a few weeks ago to council, just showing our current capital funding and then gaps in that funding. So the pink areas are the gaps in funding as we see them now. So if the program continues, if there are fewer lead service lines and we are closer to, program costs that's less than 40 million, we have those additional loan funds from the leverage loan to use to address these funding gaps. So that's shown in the pink here. So we're optimistic that we can really close that gap with those additional funds. So now moving on to the outreach strategy and materials. We are targeting replacements in the north central zone. So from north to south, that's Yale to Highway 285, and then west to east, that's from Broadway to Downing. The communication strategy that I'll go through over the next few slides will be the same for all construction zones, but we're targeting this zone to start replacements this summer. So there are multiple points of contact for customers. We really want to make sure that we are reaching people directly throughout this program. So there are 4 direct mailings. There's 4 community events. There's 3 community events that's really trying to target the north central zone residents and customers. And then there's continuous on-site visits and door hanging notifications that come from the contractor as soon as we start construction. So by month, these are the community outreach activities. So this month in May, we participated in Celebrate Englewood. This week, we will send out our lead reduction program announcement that will go to all customers citywide, so that everybody will know that we are beginning construction this year. And then the rest of these events are really targeted towards the north central zone customers. So there's a mailing. We are hosting a tent at Neighborhood Nights specifically for the lead reduction program at Emerson Park. That's within that zone. In June, we'll be participating in the SPR Waterfest, and we will also be sending out our second mailing to customers in the North Central Zone. These are customers that haven't responded, so we will request response in that first mailing. If they haven't responded, they'll get a second. In July, we have our first in-person community event. Our contractor will be there to help answer questions about the process. Our program manager will be there as well to be available and answer questions. We also are starting lead line replacement in July, and so the customer will be meeting with individual homeowners and customers at that few days before their replacement and talking them through the process, hanging door hangers on neighbors to let everybody know that this is happening, this is coming down their street. In August, there'll be a third mailing for customers that haven't responded. And again, continued interaction with the contractor. In September, we'll have our second community meeting, and then also a second neighborhood nights event at the Bates Logan Park. And then in October, we'll wrap up our community meetings with the final meeting then, and then construction, door hangers and interaction with the contractor. So this is the replacement notification schedule. These are approximate days that we would reach out to a customer prior to their lead line replacement. So 45 days before, they're gonna get a notification that we are trying to reach them. We wanna schedule their replacement. And then the mailing notices follow along on a schedule if there is no response. Going down to the water shutoffs and door hangers, that's 1 to 3 days before replacement. So the contractor has then visited the customer, walked them through what that means. They'll get a shutoff notice, and then there will be additional door hangers that are hung around the neighborhood to let people on their street know that construction is happening. So I included an example draft materials in the council packet, so I won't go into too much detail here, but those are materials so that you're aware of what your constituents are getting. So they're getting a mailing, they'll get a cover letter with the acknowledgement form. It's very important that the acknowledgement form is returned to us so that we know that they are ready for replacement. They've read through the terms there and know what to expect during construction. They'll also get a customer brochure that explains the entire program. And then the reminder letter is for customers that haven't responded. I mentioned all these are in-person events. They're just listed here by date. And then the on-site visits and the door hangers, again, the customer will walk through the contractor will walk through with the customer, everything that will happen on the day of their replacement, make sure that the acknowledgement form is collected, make sure it's safe working conditions for the contractor, and then ensure that someone will be home during the replacement. They will also get flushing instructions at the time. So there's a method by which we would like the customer to flush out their water system after the replacement has been completed. And finally, post-replacement, they'll again get flushing instructions, and then we'll also answer questions on pitcher filter use post-replacement. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Thank you so much, Deputy Director Stone. Any questions for members of council? Member Prang?
Thank you for the presentation. So can you walk me through when the resident gets notified that their pipe is one that needs to be replaced, and how much time, like when is that on-site consultation happening with them, and will there be any kind of advance notice, if you will? I'm just thinking of those circumstances that you lay out in some of your letters about the homeowner's responsibility versus the city's responsibility. So I'm just, concerned that, we may have some income restricted residents such as elderly who may need to use more, get a contractor in to do the behind the wall stuff that is the homeowner's responsibility and may not have monies available to do that. So can you talk me through how we would handle situations like that and what the timeline looks like?
Sure. So I just pulled up again the notification schedule that we're reaching out 45 days in advance, but many customers that aren't necessarily in the north central zone will be notified prior to construction in their area, maybe even a year in advance, because we're going to go through and pothole all of the homes that have been built prior to 1960. So we'll have an understanding over the next 12 months of where every single lead line is. So those that need a lot of advance notice that are outside of that north central zone will get that notification. If we find lead, we will notify them right away. We'll also drop off a pitcher and filter for their use until we come to their zone for replacement. With 45 days in advance, we would encourage customers that do have income restrictions or things that they need to discuss with us to engage with us immediately. So we've provided an email and phone number to reach out to us and make sure that they get their issues addressed.
Okay, that's helpful, thank you. And I should have saw the 45 days.
I went through this real
obviously missed
fast.
that part. I do have another question or two. So for those that do need to do some work to prep in advance, behind walls, et cetera, does the city have a list of contractors that residents can resource to more readily or easily? So someone that's just not used a lot of those services before, would we have recommendations for them?
We don't typically recommend, and we don't, not to my knowledge, do we have a list? Just 'cause we wouldn't want to seem like we are recommending a certain contractor over another. But I think there's.
It's typical of the building department that there is not recommended contractors, because as soon as we recommend a contractor, if it doesn't go well, then all of a sudden we're on the hook. So
It's a liability.
we don't anticipate there's a tremendous amount of work that they would have to do. It's really just getting us access to where that line comes into the house. And so we don't anticipate a significant amount of work to do that. But we can't necessarily recommend contractors to do it.
I mean, that makes sense to me. I'm just thinking of, we can point them to other resources that might have lists of things like that, short of making recommendations. It's just anything that we can do to help those that might have a few more struggles in getting through the process.
Yes.
And then, are we seeking any agreements with companies that provide filters and or like the filter? So I see the recommendation that 6 months we want to suggest that people use filtered water. Are we structuring any kind of agreements that would get a discount for Englewood residents as we go through this process if someone indeed is going to use 6 months worth of filters or a filtering device in their home to get through this time period?
Yes, so that's part of our program management costs. We will be providing the filter, the pitcher and the filter.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all I have.
Member Wright.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I just have a couple questions. I may be a little bit confused, so I need clarification. With this, will we be covering the cost from the curb stop to the home where it says customer? Because I was under the impression that if we have to replace it, we would be covering that cost, or is that on the customer?
So through the program, we are covering that cost.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just wanted to clarify that. Okay, and then for this first zone, how many homes are in that area that we anticipate that we have to replace galvanized pipe or lead lines?
It's around 700.
Is this our biggest zone?
It is, no, it's not. We broke it up into 10 zones, but it is one of the zones with the most concentrated number of lead lines.
Okay. Then I know that we're doing the picture, and then when I was reading the packet, it says you may have to have a special wrench to pull out the filter, I guess, when you're running the water. I know, it's just me and my tech talk. We're providing the pictures. Are we looking at providing the special doohickey to take off the filters from the faucets also, or just telling them look on Amazon to fit your faucet?
Well, yeah, we wouldn't provide that specific tool to get that aerator off, I think is what you're referencing.
Thank you, yes.
Yeah.
I don't know. You understood. And then my last question is, we're starting this 45-day process in communicating. In the middle of that 45 days, and then we start, replacing the lines and stuff, will we start in the next zone, in the midst of this, start communicating with the next zone? When would we start communicating with the second zone, I guess?
So so following the same process, we would start 45 days in advance.
So
but-
I guess my question is, okay, so we're, I don't know, 35 days into communicating with Zone 1. Then when we start communicating with Zone 2, after, we've started 35 days in with this one, would we start communicating with Zone 2 then? So we just keep, the domino effect going with each of the zones.
Correct, yeah, so within the north central zone, there'll be communications with, various streets as they're getting scheduled. And then if we're looking at replacement zones, it depends on where we're going for next year. So this north central zone will complete our first year of the program. And so then we'll be moving on to the next year. And so that communication will come as we are planning for the next zone.
Okay, perfect. All right, thank you. Thank you for understanding my gobbledygook and answering my questions.
Any further questions from members of council? Deputy Director, you got us back on schedule.
All right.
Thank you so much for the presentation, and I think that we're still speaking later on tonight, so. All right,
Yep.
perfect.
Thank you.
All right, do we need a quick break before we start the meeting, or are we ready to start? All right, let's take a 5-minute meeting. Let's start this at 7:05. Members of public will call the meeting to order at that time. Thank you. All right, everyone, we are now back. I call this meeting to order. If you're able to do so, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. City Clerk, if you could please read roll call.
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson,
Present.
Member Noonenkamp,
Present?
Member Prang,
Present.
Member Russell,
Present.
Member Ward,
Present.
Member Wright,
Present.
and Mayor Sierra.
Present.
Let the record show all 7 present.
Thank you. Moving to agenda item 5, minutes from the regular city council meeting on May 6th. Any changes to the minutes? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve the minutes for May 6th?
Move to approve the minutes from May 6th.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Could I get a second?
Second?
Thank you, Member Noonenkamp. Can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson,
Aye.
Member Noonenkamp,
Aye.
Member Prang,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Ward,
Aye.
Member Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
All right, moving on to agenda item 6, we do want to recognize Blair Corning for his appointment to the Water Quality Control Commission. Part of the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment's Water Quality Control Commission. So Blair brings nearly 3 decades of experience in water and wastewater treatment and a strong background in regulatory compliance. As the Deputy Director of Environmental Programs at South Platte Renew, Blair has consistently demonstrated his ability to develop and manage programs that enhance efficiency and value in municipal utility operations. As a commission member, Blair was appointed by the governor and confirmed by the Colorado Senate for a 3-year term. The 9-member commission is crucial in safeguarding the state's water resources by adopting water quality classifications and standards to preserve their beneficial uses. Furthermore, it implements regulations to ensure compliance with these standards and uphold water safety. Beyond its regulatory functions, the commission is a vital forum for fostering statewide dialogue on key water quality matters. This platform facilitates the advancement of policies and regulations that address various pressing issues concerning water quality across Colorado. Blair's role on the commission highlights his expertise and leadership in the field. His appointment is a significant personal achievement and a testament to the excellence of South Platte Renew and the city of Englewood. We thank Blair for his unwavering dedication to the city and community he serves. With Blair's expertise and passion for environmental water policy, we eagerly anticipate the positive impact he would undoubtedly make in shaping the future water quality management here in Colorado. Again, congratulations, Blair, on your appointment. I know that you kept us up to date on a lot of things water over the past few years. Over COVID, you were a voice nationally. Yet you started a podcast. You're constantly communicating things about water quality. So really appreciate the work that you've done over the last few years, and thank you very much for doing that for here in the city of Englewood. Thank you, Blair. Blair, I'm hoping, if you have a few words, and I'm hoping I can be able to take a picture with you as well, so. Yeah, press the green button.
There we go. I'm back into it now. Well, no, thank you for the kind words. I don't want to say this is a dream of mine, because that would make me seem like too much of a water nerd, but it has been an aspiration. I look forward to serving on the commission. I want to thank Peter and South Platte Renew, as well as the city of Englewood, for supporting me and allowing me to serve on the commission. I look forward to getting a municipal utilities perspective on that board and in the decision-making process. So thank you. All right.
All right, we're moving on to recognition of scheduled public comment. The deadline to sign up to speak for scheduled public comment is Wednesday by 5 p.m. prior to the meeting through the city clerk's office. This is an opportunity for the public to address city council. There is an expectation that the presentation will be conducted in a respectful manner. Council may ask questions for clarification, but there will not be any dialogue. And please limit your presentation to 5 minutes. Also, I noticed that there were a few kids in the audience. Just to let you know that it might get spicy during public comments. So I just want to make that aware. Just not sure if that's something that you want your kids to hear, but just want to make you aware that that could happen. But up first is Jake Gilbert, an Englewood resident, here to address council. And Member Russell, you are giving a response to public comment tonight. Is that okay? Perfect. Mr. Gilbert, good evening. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Hi, Jake Gilbert, and I live at Shenango in Delaware. I have some slides, if you don't mind. And I promise it won't be spicy. So, do I? Oh, okay, cool. Hi, thank you for having me. I'm here to address the Parks and Recreation Bond proposal, specifically the plan to replace turf with native plants in areas where people now recreate. The proposal would make those areas off limits, and in many parks, it would substantially reduce the areas available for use by park goers. This proposal goes against core principles in the Parks and Rec Master Plan, and it contradicts the results of Parks and Rec's own opinion surveys. While replacing turf with native plants has benefits in the right context, Englewood's small neighborhood parks are simply the wrong place to do it. Doing so would effectively shrink neighborhood parks by eliminating usable space. In an email with park staff, it was explained to me this way. Consultants will help us with best practices such as roping off native areas. The goal is to provide defined trails in the native areas so people don't wander too much. We understand kids may try to explore, but we will do our best to protect the areas. It was further explained on the phone that it would take somewhere around 5 years for the natives to get established. In a City of Englewood Facebook post today, it was explained that there may be trails for people to get up close to see the plants and learn more about them. On a linear trail hemmed in on both sides by physical barriers, you can't throw a frisbee, and your kids can't wander, and you can't have a picnic. Parks are meant to be used, not viewed like a museum exhibit. This image shows the current plan for... Do you mind if I pause?
Yeah, do you mind
Okay.
pausing the time? Just it looks
Thank
like we're
you.
having technical difficulties.
I appreciate it.
That we had it up and running, but it didn't look like it, so. Give us 1 second, we just got to switch back. There we go.
Okay. So this image shows the current plan for Clarkson Amherst Park. The off-limits area is shown in brown. It amounts to 23% of the park. The plan for the Southwest Greenbelt would make 58% of its area off-limits. This greenbelt is not simply a pass-through corridor. The majority of the area slated for turf replacement is level and usable, and it's currently a very pleasant, quiet place to take kids for a picnic or to let them run around and blow off steam. Residents of Northwest Englewood would lose 68% of their greenbelt, which also functions as an off-leash dog park. Rotolo Park is slated to lose 27% of its usable area. The off-limits area cuts right through the middle of it, eliminating a picnic shelter and a popular sledding hill. The 2023 revision of Parks and Rec's master plan makes multiple references to Englewood's already inadequate amount of park space. Page 15 says, quote, Englewood has fewer parks per capita than its peer communities, leading to competition for space and activities. Many parks are often too small to meet all neighborhood demands. Page 20 explains that a random sample survey of Englewood residents in 2016 found that overcrowding was the most cited reason that people did not make greater use of Englewood's parks. Page 2 explains that this problem will only get worse. Quote, adding to the challenge is the fact that the city's population is growing. In a community with little vacant land and bounded by other municipalities, obtaining additional parkland is a special challenge. The Parks Department says they will hold neighborhood meetings to, quote, help finalize the designs for turf removal. But that puts households like mine, with working parents and small children, at a distinct disadvantage because it's so hard to make time for something like that. Asking multiple neighborhoods to give up large portions of their parks for turf replacement is simply asking them to sacrifice too much. This shared public space is too important, and Englewood already does not have enough of it. Nearby communities like Denver and Highlands Ranch have successfully replaced turf with natives, but not in parks. They've done it on irrigated medians and parkways that see little to no use. Denver Parks and Recreation policy is that native plantings can only be used, quote, in areas identified as providing limited to no functional recreational value. A location like this in Englewood comes to mind. There are 4 acres of irrigated mowed turf at Hampton and Broadway, highlighted here in yellow, that are virtually inaccessible and see little if any use. This is a high-profile, highly visible location which, if converted to native plantings, would be an excellent site for Englewood to showcase native plants without cutting into our already very limited park space. So this is 4 acres that nobody uses versus this is less than 1 acre at Rotolo Park that people use every day. I also wonder if the city could increase the incentive for homeowners to replace their lawns with native plants, which I think a lot of people would do, and I think it would probably gain more overall acreage, and it would be completely voluntary. So anyway, I hope this plan for turf replacement, which involves making large swaths of parks off limits to park goers, is removed from the bond proposal. The limited park space we have is worth keeping. Thanks.
Mr. Gilbert, thank you very much for your time tonight. Any questions for Mr. Gilbert? Seeing none, Mr. Gilbert, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Up next is James Madison, here to address council. Nope, not in attendance. All right. Moving on to Chris Lambert, here to address council regarding the surf simulator. No, I saw Chris. There we go. Good evening, Mr. Lambert. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Name is Chris Lambert, and I live at Cherokee and Lehigh. Small change in the topic, still related. According to Colorado Revised Statute 18-8-306, attempt to influence a public servant. Any person who attempts to influence a public service by means of deceit with the intent to alter or affect the public servant's decision, vote, opinion, or action concerning any matter commits a Class 4 felony. In my first commission meeting on February 28th of 2024, the following statement was made, quote, once we get closer to June and have been talking to your neighbors and your friends in Englewood and get a little more feedback, you can give feedback at that time or throughout the next few months of we feel comfortable moving forward with this project and not that project. This deceptive statement materially changed the way I would have voted that night. When the staff started, all we have to do tonight to move forward on the bond, my exact thoughts were, I don't have enough information to move forward on this and did not want to vote to move this initiative forward. It was when I was deceptively led to believe that we would have open discussions over the next few commission meetings to address the concerns that I have and still had that led me to motion this to a vote and then to vote for it. You will notice, however, that there was never any time allotted for open discussion of any of the bond projects on any of the agendas between the March and May commission meetings, despite the statement that was made in the February commission meeting. As proof that I was convinced that we would have an open discussion on the bond projects, I started the last half of February, I reached out to gather the financial performance of ERC and the Pirates Cove with email sent on February 16th. I followed this up with some questions aimed at understanding how the department chose which projects to undertake and my responsibilities as a commission member in an email sent on March 5th. All of which were to help me gain the information I felt I would need to object to a few of the bond projects in the upcoming commission meetings that I was led to believe would be part of an open discussion. Although I had suspicions that I was never going to be able to express any dissent on any of the projects in the bond initiative as early as the April meeting, it was when I received the agenda for the May meeting that I truly realized that I had been deceived. I have a few other points that show that our staff has been deceptive throughout the design and the approval process of the general obligation measure at hand, including almost identical statements that, as the one I've already mentioned, and commitments to presenting the Magellan Bond Survey to the Commission. Starting in April of 2023, staff mentions going over each and every bond project in future meetings after the survey was conducted. In May of 2023, staff does talk about the Magellan survey going out. In June of 2023, there was only 5 minutes allotted for a bond update, but no recording of that meeting. In July of 2023, staff talks about going over each and every bond project in the August meeting and commits to getting out the bond survey to the commission members. In August, staff talks about not being able to move forward with the bond project because they don't want to put it in the current election cycle. Then there was a 4-month gap where the bond measure was never discussed. In January of 24, staff mentions getting individual feedback on each of the projects that were presented. Staff commits to emailing out the Magellan survey to the commission members, and as previously mentioned in the February 2024 meeting, staff mentions getting individual feedback on each of the projects. Staff also commits to getting out the survey results of the Magellan survey to the commission members, which as a member at that time, I never received. In addition to those points, there are a couple of specific answers in the questions that I sent in my March 5th email that I believe were not entirely true, plus a response made to a statement in the April commission meeting that I also doubt is accurate. These are all deceptive practices meant to influence or alter a public servant's decision, vote, or opinion or action. Therefore, I would like the city manager, the city attorney, and the council to invest my claims of ethical misconduct before moving this bond forward, before moving the bond measure forward. I would also like to request the emails that were all sent to the Parks and Rec Commission members from April of 2023 to February of 2024. And in addition, and finally, I would like copies of any cost-benefit analysis, return on investment, or cost recovery analysis pertaining to the ERC and Pirates Cove projects with their completion dates or presentation dates attached.
Mr. Lambert, thank you very much for your time. Any questions for Mr. Lambert? Member Pring.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments this evening. I am aware in the April 11th meeting that you did bring up some concerns about the bond and some features within the bond. Outside of that commissioner's choice opportunity that you had to bring up your concerns, have you reached out directly to the chair of the commission or staff to request directly that the conversation be put back on the agenda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Member Nunekamp?
I had the same question about
Okay.
reaching out to the chair. The chair sets the agenda with the staff, so that's what I was wondering.
Okay, thank you so much. With no further questions, Mr. Lambert, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Up next is Chris Cordova, here to address council. Good evening, Mr. Cordova. If you just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Christopher Cordova, I'm in Denver. I told you guys that I wasn't going to come back for a while, and I kept true to that. It's been a few months. I was actually going to wait even longer to come back, but Joe Anderson, Steve Ward, and Mr. Lewis did something pretty foolish, so we'll talk about that momentarily. But I wanted to bring some case law to your attention since Member Prang doesn't know any, and this is in regards to pornography in a library. And I was hoping you guys would do some research, but clearly you haven't, so let's refer to the 1997 case of Reno versus ACLU. The Supreme Court ruled that the Federal Commission's Decency Act is an unconstitutional restriction on speech. The landmark ruling affirmed the dangers of censoring what one judge called, quote, the most participatory form of mass speech yet developed, end quote. The CDA passed in 1996, making it a crime for anyone to engage in online speech that is indecent or patently offensive if the speech could be viewed by a minor. The ACLU argued that the censorship provisions were unconstitutional because they would criminalize expression of protected by the First Amendment. In a landmark 7-2 decision written by Justice John Paul Stevens, the court ruled that the CDA placed a, quote, unacceptably heavy burden on protected speech, end quote. The court also wrote that, quote, an interest of encouraging freedom of expression in a democratic society outweighs any theoretical but unproven benefit of censorship, end quote. Didn't I say that? I'm pretty sure I said that a few times, that banning pornography, the benefits don't outweigh the risk. But some of you chuckled, Others blatantly made fun of me. And you all thought that I was foolish, but 7 Supreme Court judges didn't think I was foolish. Plaintiffs comprise nearly 30 organizations, including the American Library Association. Mr. Ward, I understand that you didn't perceive this 2003 case of the United States versus the ALA correctly, which states that you are required to install web filtering software in order to receive federal funding. And I said on the record that I'm okay with that. I just want it removed from the policy, but I would also like to just let you guys know that when it comes down to it, I am on board with the ALA on that one, because when you install web filtering software, it'll restrict National Geographic, breast cancer websites, things of this nature, which we have a right to receive. Again, Martin versus City of Struthers, we have a right to receive speech as well as the freedom to speak. So these case laws do contradict each other, but that'll be something for another time. But it gets worse. So Mr. Lewis isn't here, but Mr. Lewis drafted an administrative order that prohibits taking anyone's picture in an Englewood city facility without their consent. And I'm pretty sure he got that from his friend Cranberry over in Sheridan. And to be honest with you guys, I never thought that I would find a more corrupt city government than Sheridan. But here we are. You guys are getting pretty close. So if you guys want to get rid of me, this isn't the way to do it. You don't do what you guys did, I'm going to talk about in a minute. Mr. Lewis, I just wanted him to honor his oath, that's it. But I already did an audit down in the library like 2 years ago. It was great. I had no reason to go back there. But now I have to, right? So you're perpetuating what you don't want. Just honor your oath, that's all we're asking. And I won't have to come back here. And to be honest, I don't even want to come back here, but now I have to go record in the library, and hopefully I won't get arrested because, I'm not going to be bullied out of my rights, I can promise you that. So I saved the best for last. We had Joe Anderson and Steve Ward went up on a troll channel live on the internet. It's got 20,000 views, which is like an anti-First Amendment channel run by a Canadian. He's not even an American. And they bashed Regan Benson and I for about an hour and a half, claiming they're not in their official capacity, but the entire conversation was in regards to Englewood city business. And then they threw Kim Wright under the bus too, in front of thousands of people. And yeah, you do have a First Amendment right, but it's really unprofessional for you to go up on a troll channel and talk trash about the people that come up to this podium to speak. It's not a good look for you, buddy. And Mr. Ward, you said, this might be the easiest to defend recall in the history of recalls. Well, maybe not. I'm giving you more case law. And especially not after your conduct of going up in front of thousands of people and talking trash about the people that come up to this podium to redress their government. Why would you guys do that? I think this might be one of the easiest to win recalls. And actually, I can facilitate the recall. I just can't sign. I can't turn it in.
Mr. Cordova, your 5 minutes are up. Thank you very much for your time tonight. Any questions from members of council? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Up next is Nicole Flounders, here to address council regarding a crosswalk at Oxford and Fox. Good evening, Ms. Flounders. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Yes. Nicole Flounders, and I'm at Mansfield and Elati. Okay. There are so many things that I love about living in Englewood. It has the benefits of the city being close to public transportation, great restaurants, but it still has that wonderful small town feel with a close community. As our children became school-aged, we were also so excited that the city invested so much money into the schools and prioritized remodeling the schools to make them the beautiful, safe buildings they are today. My husband and I love that small town feel, and because of this, we wanted the ability to walk or bike our kids to school. We have one child at Maddox and one child at Clayton. And while Clayton is only a mile from our house, biking to school can often feel dangerous and inaccessible because we have to cross Oxford and Quincy. Even though Fox is a designated bike lane, the cars on Oxford are going so fast with the morning rush hour being so busy that we often sit at this intersection for a long time trying to find a safe moment to cross. And this is not ideal for getting kids to school on time. Currently, we have a cargo bike and our girls sit on the back of the bike to get to school. But as they get bigger, we would love them to bike on their own bikes. At this point, we would definitely not feel safe with them crossing Oxford, and this would limit our ability to then bike to school. I know there are also a lot of families that live on the south side of Oxford who would love to walk or bike their kids to Maddox. However, they end up driving even less than a mile to get to school just because they don't feel safe crossing. As Englewood is growing and there's more young families moving in to our great city, I think we need a safer way to get our kids to school. In the strategic plan that was put out by the City Council, two of the focuses are transportation and sustainability. I think having a crosswalk at Fox and Oxford hits both of these focuses. It ensures the safety of pedestrians and families getting their children to school, and it also prioritizes the environment by giving people another option by biking or walking around Englewood. Like the crosswalk downtown on Broadway, it would reduce the number of cars on the road, decrease the need for more parking spaces, and reduce greenhouse gases. As you, the City Council, are going through budgeting and projects for this year, I'm asking that you prioritize the safety of our community and focus on improving walkability in our city by putting a crosswalk at Fox and Oxford.
Thank you very much for your time tonight, Ms. Flounders. Any questions for Ms. Flounders? So, Ms. Flounders, you're stating Fox is where you believe that the crosswalk should go on Oxford.
Because that's the designated bike lane,
Right.
and so that's why we try to utilize that.
Okay, makes sense. All right, with no further questions, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you.
Up next is Regan Benson here to address council regarding Steve and Joe and their show. Ms. Benson, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Ms. Benson, we can hear you.
First off, I want to welcome everyone to the hashtag Steve and Joe Show. It's truly an honor to be in your holier than thou presence. To once think that I praised an awesome God, I now have been set straight in repentance and understanding my place on earth, with all due credit to the Steve and Joe Show. My name is Regan, and I am a fierce advocate for those living homeless. Homeless, those most commonly known as the weakest, the sickest, and the poorest in a civilized society. Homeless, also known as one paycheck away from homelessness. Oh yes, I'm sorry, I forgot my cross streets in order to be allowed to speak to the royalty before us. I'm located at the roundabout with the traffic calming, cooling concrete at the intersection of Hell Street and Heaven Parkway. Here in Englewood, it's no secret that hate is the game on this marginalized society. How so? Well, everybody knows that if you're living homeless, you shouldn't be allowed to exist in public. And in order for this travesty of one's right to survive to no longer exist, we must, as a civilized society, beg government to eradicate this faction of society and perpetuate class warfare by creating laws and use of force punishment on any person in order to achieve compliance. Any person that exudes fairness and equal application of the law. Certainly you would agree. Per usual, I'm not speaking to ask you to do anything this evening. Your failings are more notable to highlight as a local body government more interested in working against the people. It's been a standing tradition with the climate and culture of Englewood to ostracize, berate, and attack anyone that dare speak before you, and out of line with the majority council agenda, which is seek and destroy. New Englewood motto: we don't agree with you, you're difficult because you're right. You don't give us acceptable cross streets, you gotta go. Hence the Steve and Joe Show. That's why you want to silence people. That's undoubtedly why the Steve and Joe Show is now a thing. Partnering with a Canadian socialist on YouTube that never reveals his or its face. Blasphemy. Did I just call it an it? Welcome to the world of artificial intelligence, Steve and Joe. Steve and Joe, duped by a YouTube star from Canada. Joe, very thankful the channel's supporters have provided the Englewood PD an opportunity to latch on to foreign nationals, interjecting themselves into the American justice system. Go Englewood! Joe and Steve on YouTube berating Councilmember Kim Wright and those they don't agree with that dare speak at the podium. They call this excellence in elected leadership in support of the First Amendment. I love it. We want more. We want more. Steve and Joe. Perhaps Steve and Joe really should think about changing Englewood's mission statement to begin with, "Welcome to Little Commiehood," followed by the standards of "Keep your mouth shut or else." Please, by all means, shut down public comment. It's okay. You're not here to serve the people. You're here to serve yourselves and your friends. Lock all those doors. Let no one in but your friends and those that think like you and are capable of showing proper response and feeling anointed by your almighty presence. It'll be okay. I promise you, it's justified. It's time. Segregate those bathrooms. Make the peasants beg you on their knees to relieve themselves of their toxic freedom-tainted urine and feces. I declare, it's past time. Give us more, Steve and Joe. Wherever Mr. Lewis is, I'm wholly impressed with the upcoming comedy release you've drafted, the document known as the Devin Granberry 2.0, no recording the royalty in public spaces. I'm super excited for the release of this one. I can't wait. Your government body as a majority is incapable of deciphering the rights of the people in contrast to your personal agendas. We call this democracy in America, except that we don't live in a democracy. We live in a constitutional republic that was designed to avoid and dismantle social clubs like what we have here, the Englewood City Council, where mob rule is the name of the game and personal agendas rule the people by use of force in order to gain compliance. Englewood is a fantastic municipality to live in, the offerings of all things authoritarian and totalitarian. Don't like a faction of society? Live in Englewood.
Ms. Benson, thank you very much for your time. Your 5 minutes are up. Any questions for members of council? Seeing none, Ms. Benson, thank you for your time. And that concludes scheduled public comment. We're going to move to unscheduled public comment. We have 6 speakers here tonight. Up first is Gary Kozak here to speak about the podcast. Good evening, Mr. Kozak. If you could just state your name and your address across
Gary
streets.
Kozak, Oxford and Lipan. I want to start off with thanking, I've been going for over a year to get a crosswalk. More than just there, but down in front of the recreation center for the safety factor. That the city doesn't want to turn around and do a traffic study. I also want to thank you for coming forward with them changing things as they go, because they're even coming up here to change the rules. You change the minutes that we can speak, and if you take away somebody that's out of the state or out of the Englewood area, you are subjecting the city of Englewood losing state funding, federal funding, and federal grant money. Because they start looking at who's in control of what. The public's no longer in control of this, it's the board, then you will be scrutinized with a microscope. Now, as far as the podcast, yeah, I got a hold of that. Now, I'm separate from these two, okay? Because 2 of you spoke on that, and you spoke about that you formally talked on in front of city council before you ever got on city council. But you were upset with the fact that the council members didn't listen and didn't respond to you. And so what did you do? You got on board, and now you're complaining about the very same thing. You want to know more about me? I've been here forever, 72 plus years. Born and raised here. My family had a cherry orchard here. They homesteaded before it was even Englewood. My grandmother coached and was a cafeteria. She headed up the cafeteria at Madison Elementary School. So I got a lot of roots in this town. You talk about respect. You have the rights, gentlemen. Everybody on this board and everybody out here has the right to speak, a freedom of speech. But you do not, you think about it, you do not have the right while you're sitting on the dais to sit there after I walked out several different times and badmouthed me. And I didn't call you on the carpet for that, but after hearing that podcast and after, oh, well, I know the constitutional laws so well, I've handed you the law and you guys still violate the law. So with God's blessing, you're afraid, you have extra force here. Did you realize going on that podcast, you just opened your door to millions of more people And yeah, how many crazy people are within that millions of people? You've opened the door because you wanted to go public on a podcast and go ahead and advertise more on a different view. God bless you guys, and thank you for the support back here.
Mr. Kozak, thank you very much for your time tonight. Any questions from council? Seeing none, thank you for your time, Mr. Kozak. Up next is, please refrain from clapping. Up next, I believe is it Cat Diamond?
Constitutional law.
Point
Mr.
of
Kozak,
order.
your time is up. Mr. Kozak, your time is up. Mr. Kozak, your time is up.
When you recognize
Mr.
somebody else, they have the right to clap
Mr.
now.
Kozak, your time is up. I believe is it Cat Diamond or last name was Diamond. I'm not sure what the last. Oh, there we go. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Sure, thank you. My name is AJ Diamond. I live at Mansfield and Delaware.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry for my poor handwriting. I'm coming to speak today in support of several members of the community, including Ms. Flounders, for a crosswalk on Fox, on Oxford, and also near on Quincy, if possible. This would make it much safer and easier to take my son to school. We also ride bikes, and in the afternoons when I pick him up, he rides his bike. He's currently 5. It's hair-raising to cross Oxford and Quincy with a 5-year-old, even though he's great and he follows all the rules we set for him. As a group of us went to the Transportation Advisory Committee on March 20th and gave a lot of information about why we think this is a good idea. It matches a lot of what the Vision Zero, Metro Vision Zero from the Council of Governments calls for, and it's a good idea to connect the two areas into a community. It would allow a lot more people. We crossed Oxford on Halloween. It was also hair-raising as the sun was setting. So a designated area where drivers are used to folks crossing at those times would be very beneficial. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Diamond, for your discussion. Go ahead, Member Russell.
Thank you. You know, the crosswalk downtown is just flashing lights. Do you think, I think there's maybe another crosswalk on Oxford down farther that has a stoplight.
Yeah, and we've gone there. It is a crosswalk, and it has the flashing lights, and it is great. It's also quite a bit longer out of our way, and when we have young kids to get them home for a snack.
Right.
But we do appreciate the crosswalk very
Right,
much. So,
and I'm not asking you if you want that. I'm asking, would you like a stoplight rather than flashing lights?
Well, if you don't tell all the people driving that I said yes, then absolutely. But yes, I do think some form of protection so that there is awareness of for drivers that there are people crossing with lights. We were told at the transportation meeting that they were applying for a grant from the state of Colorado and that they were optimistic. I also write grants in my job, so I know you can be optimistic all you want. But,
okay.
But yes, flashing lights or a stoplight would be wonderful.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Diamond, just clarification, it's also on Fox that you're looking for that?
Oh, on Fox, yes.
On Fox, okay.
That's the designated bike lane in our community.
Just wanted to confirm. All right, perfect. With no further questions, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Up next is Kyle Conroy, here to also talk about the crosswalks. Hello, Ms. Conroy, if you could just state your name and your address across streets.
Kyle Conrad, and I'm at Delaware and Mansfield. So thank you for all you do for our community. I also love living in Englewood. I think it's a really magical small town in a big city, and I always tell people I get the best of urban and suburban life. I too am coming to speak because my son and my husband, our second car is our bike. That's how we get around, is we're really trying to bike. And so I want to know they're safe. And I am often worried and stressed about the drive. We're currently actually wearing red tonight to support a child in Littleton who was biking to school, and that did not turn out well. And so we're here to support Liam as well, and just remind us all that we need to create a safer community. I also just want a more walkable community in general. This is something I'm constantly advocating for. You know, we look at blue zones where if people can walk places in 15 minutes, you live longer, you live healthier. I want my son to go play with his friends on both islands that we currently live on. I want kids on Halloween or any holiday to cross safely, and I just want us to put the structure, the boundaries in place to make it safe for all those children and families, and also the other people. It doesn't just have to be children and families. Anybody who wants to cross and see their friends should be able to in a safe way. We also have lots of people who aren't necessarily going to Clayton. I know Clayton's, we're here tonight, but people go to Rotolio. That's the safest route to Dry Creek Trail that is not crossing Santa Fe or Hamden. So even thinking about getting to the bike trail, technically Fox the Bike route is the safest way there that prevents going across those big roads. So we just want to continue to have your ears and help us in advocating for this. I feel like the Transportation Commission was very much in support. The members of that were in support, and now it's just a question of, can we get this done? What do you need from us? How do we support you? And how can you help us get there? So again, thank you for your time and all you do for our community. You're amazing. Thanks.
Ms. Conrad, thank you very much for your time tonight. Member Russell has a question.
And can I ask your name again, because I didn't hear
Oh,
it?
it's Kyle Conrad.
Kyle Conrad. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Any further questions? Ms. Conrad, thank you very much for your time tonight. Up next is Jen McCoy here to talk about public discussion. Good evening, Ms. Conroy. Ms. McCoy, sorry. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Jan McCoy, Crossroads or Sherman, and just drew a blank.
No, you're good.
South Sherman, anyway. It seems a bit remedial to start by saying that this is Englewood City Council, but I think it needs to come up, and I'm hearing echoes in the chamber tonight from several people speaking of the same thing. It's not the mayor's council or your personal council, it's Englewood City Council, and you were voted into these positions by the people of Englewood. You hold this seat by the vote of the people, and you are to represent those people, not just those that share your views. I'm deeply disturbed by the discussions to begin limiting public ability to freely speak to council and express viewpoints. I don't mind the 3-minute limit. I think that in of itself can allow more people to speak, but then you go and start talking about limiting it to an hour. I say no to that. If you cannot take your evening time on the few times, I mean, this is not a common every week occurrence, that these discussions go late into the night, then you don't belong on city council. I just feel that strongly about it. I heard comments on the study sessions that I listened to saying, we have business to get done. There is no more important business than that of the people that voted you onto this dais. And I'll say it again, that is the most important thing that you do, is listen and represent the people in Englewood. I mentioned that it's been just a few times that I think I saw it with ADUs and I saw it with Code Next, where these meetings got long and heated and lots of people wanted to speak. That ought to be a good thing to you. That ought to show you the sign of a healthy city when people show up and take their time, their commitment, and their sacrifice to be here. I think if you're worried about hostile opinions, I think the first place you might look is at maybe to your right or to your left, and look at some of the history of the comments by people that have sat on this council or sent out flyers. We're missing some council people because they called the public little people. We saw flyers go out that said usual suspects. I don't know who those were. I called my council person and never got a response back from the person that sent that flyer out. I think it's a grave injustice and an insult to the people not to be here to listen to what everyone has to say. And I'll close this by just saying that the last 7 weeks of my husband's life were spent here in city council, strongly trying to represent the beliefs and the views that he wanted to see in the city that he hoped to live in. He sat here
Miss
until.
Miss McCoy, Miss McCoy, thank you very much for your time tonight, Miss McCoy. Any questions from members of council? Seeing none, thank you for your time. Up next is Dan Strakojan, here to talk about the crosswalks. Good evening. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Yep, Dan Strakojan, Mansfield, and Lottie. Thank you for letting us speak to you today about the importance of biking and pedestrian-friendly infrastructure, specifically safe routes to Englewood schools. We have 2 children, 3 and 6, that go to Madison and Clayton schools. We love how close we live to each of those schools. Maddox is a quarter mile away and Clayton is about a mile away. By living so close, we try to take any opportunity we can to bike the kids to school, unless it's freezing, cold, or the roads are snowy and icy. We're biking instead of driving. We find numerous benefits to biking instead of driving. The first is community. Seeing the neighborhood and neighbors walking or biking is so much more enjoyable. There are many times where as we're biking to or from school, the girls will see their classmates and say hi. If we were in the car, that interaction would have never happened. The second is health. Many people for my job, I sit behind a computer screen all day. So getting out and picking the kids up on bike gets me moving instead of sitting more in the car. The third is the environment. By biking or walking more places, it's less gas we're burning and exhaust we're emitting. I would love to see more dedicated and thoughtful biking and pedestrian infrastructure in Englewood, but as a minimum, infrastructure to provide safe routes to the neighborhood schools in Englewood should be prioritized. I consider myself a strong and confident biker, but there are some spots on the route to Clayton that are pretty scary, specifically crossing Oxford and Quincy along Fox, Elodie, and Delaware. Both are hilly and cars speed by in both directions with no concern for crossing traffic. On Oxford, the nearest crosswalk is down near the rec center or up at Broadway, even though Fox is considered a designated bike route. As my kids become better bikers themselves, without improvements to these crossings, I wouldn't risk their lives to cross the streets. As you plan out infrastructure improvements, please prioritize crossings along Fox for Oxford and Quincy to allow families to safely commute to schools, playgrounds, and neighborhoods. Thank you.
Mr. Strakojan, thank you very much for your comments tonight. Any questions for members of council? Seeing none, thank you for your time tonight. And Chris Dewis is our last speaker for the night, here to talk about freedom of speech, and Dan Dietz. Good evening, Mr. Dewis. If you could just state your name and your address or cross streets.
Chris Dewis, Bellevue and Broadway. Thank you for allowing me to speak here tonight. Dan Dietz Sr., a very close friend of mine and mentor, passed away last week. He was the Gold Star father of his son, Navy SEAL son, Danny Dietz, that died in the line of service. There was a movie about him. It's called The Lone Survivor. His funeral will be held at Fort Logan next Wednesday at 2. If you didn't know. Santa Fe is also known as Danny Dietz Memorial Highway. Hundreds of thousands of our forefathers have died for the freedoms that we have in this country. Trying to limit our freedom of speech in this city is unacceptable. Previous councils worked very hard on the rules that are in place. They have worked great for many years. Just leave it alone. Limiting our time to speak will open a can of worms you wish you never did. That's all I have to say.
All right. Sorry about that, Mr. Dewis. Any questions? Any questions from members of council? Seeing none, Mr. Dewis, thank you very much for your time. Oh, sorry. No. Are we good?
Hi, Mr. Dewis.
Go.
Have you looked at any of the changes that are being proposed to public comment, or do you just blanket think public comment should not be changed at all?
Well, I think it's been working fine all these years.
That's what I needed to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Mr. Dewis. And with that, that concludes unscheduled public comment. We don't have any online speakers, correct, Sarah? Nope. All right. And with that, Member Russell is giving a response to public comment. You may proceed when you're ready.
I would like to thank each and every one of you for coming out tonight. And in my opinion, this is the most important time we spend in the evening to hear from you about what you care about. Jake, I greatly appreciate your thoughts on the parks. I absolutely agree with you. Thank you for bringing the pictures and the amount of park space that actually would be taken out. And hopefully, council will be able to talk about this before. And thank you, Mr. Lambert. I did hear what you said. I will do some council requests and look into this. I greatly appreciate that because I do think it is important for the committees to study and have input. That's why we appoint people to boards and commissions. So thank you for that. Mr. Cordova, I appreciate you coming out tonight, and I do appreciate the right to freedom of speech and the library situation as far as pornography has not changed, I do not think. If it has changed, I would appreciate an email from you, but council has not addressed that at all since you were here the first time. And I do appreciate you coming out, and it is very disconcerting to me also that council members would go on a public forum and go after people. And not only you and other people who have the right to your opinions, but even council itself. And so thank you for coming to bring that to our attention. Ms. Flounders, and actually I'm going to address all of you that spoke about the AJ Diamond, Kyle Conrad, and Dan Strategon. We have brought forward a question about putting a crosswalk there. Staff is looking into it. I'll highlight that again. I do appreciate Oxford is a very busy street, and I don't think a flashing light will fix that problem, especially for children. Because we've had several close calls down on Broadway where the flashing lights are, and people don't even realize it till the last minute and sometimes crosswalks give us a false sense of security. And so I am, concerned. So we will be looking into that. I appreciate you all coming out about that. Regan, I don't know if you are online still. I appreciate you coming forward and speaking as well. You also have a right to be heard, and I do agree that public comment is the most important thing that we do on this city council. Gary, I appreciate you coming tonight to share with us, and I just want to take an opportunity to repeat again what you asked for over and over and over again was a traffic study on Oxford. And I would like to suggest also that part of the reason there is so much traffic on Oxford, and it will continue to get more and more, the more we increase the density along the transit-oriented development, it will be almost impossible to cross Oxford. And so this council needs to start looking into that and making sure that we start limiting density, or our quality of life is going to be totally ruined. Let's see. Jan, I greatly appreciate you coming out tonight to share. I reiterate that too. I'm really sorry for your loss, and I know that Roger did come till he just could not come anymore. And I know that both of you feel very strongly about the quality of life in this city, and I greatly appreciate that. Chris, I want to thank you for coming out tonight too, and thank you for reminding us about Danny Dietz. He did give his life in the military, and that is exactly why it is important for us to listen to you all, because we have veterans that have given their life to protect our constitutional right. So thank you very much for coming out this evening, and if I missed you, I apologize, but I appreciate everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to just respond to a couple of things. First of all, I wanted to thank my neighbors for coming out to talk about that crosswalk. Really appreciate it. I would like to see that happen too. I know we have applied for a state grant that would potentially help with that. If not, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to, as a council, find money from our capital improvement budgets or our unassigned fund balance to fund that in 2025. So thank you, and it is a priority for me, and I know from what I've heard from council as a whole as well. I wanted to just speak to, we had a couple of people come tonight to talk about a YouTube channel that Steve and I know a lot of you guys aren't normally at council meetings and maybe don't know the history of this. So I want to just provide a little perspective on that. I really appreciate that everyone has their right for public free speech. And we have a couple of people who spoke tonight at City Council, Chris Cordova and Regan Benson, who styled themselves as First Amendment auditors. And what that means is they go around to different cities and they test the boundaries of what they can get away with, right? What's something, they try to find something that's legal, but that they think might provoke a reaction and therefore get cities to violate the law. And do that. So they do that. But what they're doing is they're acting obnoxious in public places. That's what it comes down to. And Regan Benson specifically, has a long track record of cursing out cops, flipping people off, and just generally creating a nuisance of herself in public places. And this stuff is not a secret because she publishes it on her YouTube channel. That's the second thing they do, is they take these audits and then they go and broadcast them on the internet to get YouTube views and make money. And so they have the freedom to do that, and I appreciate that they're exercising their freedoms. I also have freedom of speech, and Steve and one thing cities have struggled with is how do you deal with this? People are not quite doing stuff illegal all the time. Sometimes they do push up against the line, and they end up breaking the law, a lot of these auditors have ended up in jail. A lot of them have criminal cases against them, even now, including the ones that are speaking tonight. So eventually, sometimes they do push up against where they're breaking the law. But how should cities deal with them? That's something cities have wrestled with around the metro area. And so something I thought would be good is what if they have this big YouTube audience, what if we got on somebody with a big YouTube audience and just talked about how it's impacting our cities. So that's what Steve and I did. And it was a lot of fun. I stand behind every single word I said on that channel. And frankly, sometimes we get public commenters that I disagree with, and it turns out the citizens of Englewood disagree with. Mr. Cordova wants us to eliminate all of the restrictions on behavior standards in our library. We put those in place because our library was being wildly abused, and it's gotten to be a much better place now that we have some tools to actually ban people from the library. I've yet to talk to anybody in Englewood who wants to do the Chris Cordova plan. And I want to stand up for the citizens of Englewood. So
Member Russell,
I would like to call a point of decorum. He's going on about things that don't need to be gone over now. He's taking personal privilege that not one of them can respond to. And he's already gone on for over 5 minutes.
Thank you, Member Russell. Mayor Pro Tem.
I'll wrap it up here in about another 30 seconds or a minute.
Go ahead.
Call for a vote on point of decorum, or second. I need a second.
Is there a second on point of decorum?
Yes, there's a second.
All right. And with that, can we please vote?
What's the point of decorum?
I guess the point of decorum is...
Can I see the policy in our policy manual that they are saying I am violating?
Deputy City Attorney, do we have anything on point of decorum?
I'm looking for it now. I know there's something in our municipal code on that, so just bear with me.
Okay.
Regardless.
Sorry, that's just an amendment to the Bob's Rules of Order from 2013, which is just to include on a point of decorum that it is a request of a member requiring a second for the body as a whole to review an act of a member for conformance with the rules of decorum, as such rules have been established and adopted by the body as a whole. It shall require approval by a majority of the quorum present, and it is not debatable. So I believe Mayor Pro Tem is just asking for which rule
Yes, which
has
rule?
been
Right.
allegedly violated.
Member Russell, is there anything that you want to point out there?
Actually, it was in there. Can you read that last part again?
Sure. So I'm looking at Englewood Municipal Code Section 1-5-2-8, and it's just regarding the motion on what the point of decorum is, and it does allow for the body as a whole to review an act of a member for conformance with the rules of decorum. So what Mayor Pro Tem is requesting is which rule of Bob's
Okay,
Rules
so
of Order
the
has been
rules,
violated.
the rules that we read to the public beforehand.
No, it's the rules of decorum.
Oh,
within the
so
policy manual.
you can do whatever you want.
It's the rule.
Member, point of order.
Point of decorum.
So, Member Russell, is there anything that you want to point out, or? So we do have a second, but Mayor Pro Tem needs to know.
There is an expectation that the presentation will be conducted in a respectful manner. I think that this council needs to respect the public also. He took his point of privilege to address who went after him. He spent enough time. So I want the time limit right now to stop. And I have a motion, well, maybe I don't have a second. I move that.
So Member Russell.
We have the opportunity to debate the motion, and I am debating the motion by saying, if you're accusing
You don't
me of-
have the floor, the mayor does.
Member Russell, so we just need to state which decorum was broken or which rule was broken. So without that, we're not able to correct, Mayor Pro Tem is not able to correct what was violated.
And excuse me, I'm sorry, it under our municipal code, it is not debatable. I'm sorry if.
Okay, well, there we go. Okay, well, with that, we do have a second. Member Wright has a second. City Clerk, can you please take the vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
Nay.
Member Neunenkamp.
Nay.
Member Prang.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Member Ward.
Nay.
Member Wright.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Nay.
Let the record show 3 ayes and 4 nays.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, can you wrap it up
Thank you,
within the
Mayor.
next 30 seconds?
I will
Thank you.
wrap it up. So first of all, I see if I can pick up where I left off. I was standing up for the citizens of Englewood. We need a library that functions, and we need to be able to have an opportunity to answer the people that come and do these things on YouTube and in person at city council meetings. I'm answering the in-person thing right now. YouTube stuff I answered online. I encourage you all to watch it. And what I do want to add, final point here, is that what we've seen come out of this is they really don't like it. These are the people who claim to be the defenders of free speech. But when me and Steve got on YouTube and went on another channel, they were really, really disappointed in that. They did not like it at all. And they said, and this is something Ms. Benson said in one of her videos, if you think you are going to go on a troll show and allow thousands of people to sit there and bash our work, which we didn't bash their work, for a straight hour and a half, you got another thing coming. I call that evidence that our approach to this is working well, and I intend to continue.
All right. Anyone else with a response? Go ahead, Member Wright.
I watched the video. I did not want to, but it was sent to us by a council member. Some of the things that bothered me was discussions on upcoming votes, bringing up other members' names, and I think those are the things that bothered people that spoke this evening. So when you're discussing rules with the library and pornography, that's one thing, but when you're discussing upcoming public comment votes, you're bringing up other council members' names. There are council meetings being shown. Granted, if you are the ones that are given those clips or not, I think there's a different twist on that, and I think that's where the public is coming from. I've received calls, I've received emails from a couple of people. So I just think it needs to be taken and thought of that way. And some thought needs to be put that way because there are upcoming votes and it's being put on blast for the world to see. And thought wasn't put into that.
Thank you, Member Wright. And with that, that concludes public comments. Do we need to take a short break before we move to the rest of the agenda, or are we ready to go? Okay, we're going to take a short break. It's 8:15, but we come back, what, 8:20 or 8:25 or?
20, oh, I know.
I'm sorry, 25? 8:20. Thank you. Hey, it's wavy, it's not curly, so. All right, everyone, we are now back. We're moving on to consent agenda items. I believe there's just been a couple of items pulled tonight. I believe it's 9C1 was pulled as well as 9C4.
And
Did I-
can we pull 9C3 also?
9C3?
9C3 also. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Russell. Okay. All right, so that leaves, can I get a motion to approve 9B1 and 9B2 and 9C2?
So moved.
Thank you, Member Noonan. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Prang. Can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson,
Aye.
Member Noonenkamp,
Aye.
Member Prang,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Ward,
Aye.
Member Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Perfect. 9C1, Member Russell, you had a question regarding contractual services to establish a new risk management program. Do we have Director Weisky online?
I believe he's online, Mayor.
All right. And I believe he's online. There we go. Member Russell, do you have your question?
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Why do we not have a dedicated risk management person on staff already? How much will it cost to fill that position? Will we be able to immediately implement this plan once it has been generated by Brown and Caldwell?
Yeah, so over the last few years, for your first question about the risk manager, we have not had a dedicated person for, I believe, about 5 years. When the last individual left the city, their duties were dispersed between finance, human resources, and to a lesser extent, the city attorney's office. And so what we're trying to do right now is to consolidate that back to a single source and a point of contact so that people will have a single source contact and we can have the entire program consolidated in one location. As far as what that's going to cost, as of right now, we do have the budget to fund this position for the remainder of 2024. Going into the future into 2025, the annual cost will be roughly about $130,000 annually. That's fully loaded with benefits, payroll taxes, and everything. And so about half of that, as of right now, we would be able to fund. So looking forward into 2025, I will be bringing forward a proposal to increase the budget slightly to be able to fund this going forward. And sorry, what was the last part of your question?
Will we be able to immediately implement this plan once it has been generated by Brown and Caldwell?
Yeah, that's part of the reason that we have the money. I was able to find money for the remainder of this year is so that we can hire somebody so that upon Brown and Caldwell providing that implementation map for us and the project map for us, we'll be able to implement it immediately because that person will be fully oriented and on board and ready to go once that project is ready to move forward.
Okay, thank you. And mostly, this isn't about a risk management plan. This is about a safety plan, the safety part of the risk management. Is that correct?
Correct. That's what's missing as of right now is the safety portion and having that robust safety culture and robust safety program, similar to what SPR is.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any further questions from members of council? If not, can I get a motion to approve 9C1?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Member Wright. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Noonan. Any further comments? Can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson,
Aye.
Member Noonenkamp,
Aye.
Member Prang,
Aye.
Member Russell,
Aye.
Member Ward,
Aye.
Member Wright,
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you very much, Director Weisky, for that. Moving on to the next item. I think we have Deputy Director Sarah Stone here to answer questions regarding the First Amendment to the Water Tower lease agreement with New Singular. Member Russell, your question, please.
I just have, someone called me today, and so I wouldn't necessarily have looked at it. So in the presentation under background and purpose, it has a map of Englewood, and it has a star down there. Is that star supposed to be the water tower?
Yes, that is the correct location of the water tower.
Except for it's not really there. It is, that star is west of Broadway, and it needs to be in that little L-shaped piece because that's at Sherman. And it's at Sherman and just south of Bellevue. So, but everything, all the paperwork explains that it's the Sherman Water Tower. So I just wanted to bring that up. Can we move the star?
Sure, yes, absolutely. Locate it a little bit better.
Okay, I think somebody else might have a question too, though.
Go ahead, Member Wright.
I do, thank you. What have we been paid per month between February and currently?
So they have been actually paying the $3,000 a month that we had negotiated as a part of this renewal.
Okay, and then this may not be a you question, it might be city manager or city attorney's office. We keep getting these leases or contracts coming to us after the fact, several of them since I've been elected. What can we do to stop this from happening where we're getting them before they expire, not after they expire? So I don't know who would need to answer that question.
Can I address it on this particular lease?
Please.
Okay, so the representative from New Singular Wireless, I believe, reached out to me in late 2023. We spent several months going back and forth negotiating the rental amount, and that's the reason that this kind of got delayed. We also had several items that we wanted to bring to city council, and this was one that just kind of got pushed a little bit out because we had more important things that we were bringing to council.
You guys have been like really busy, so it just this kind of bottom of priority, but it just, I think this would be a city manager thing. There's a lot of things we've had. I don't know if we could set a clock, a year before things expire to say, oh, dang, we need to look at that. So, all right, thank you so much.
Any further questions? Seeing none, can I get a motion to approve 9C3?
I move to approve 9C3.
Thank you, Member Russell. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Member Wright. Any further comments? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp.
Aye.
Member Prang.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Member Ward.
Aye.
Member Wright.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you very much. Next question, I believe it may also fall with the Director of Utilities, but the contract for services with Hubman Engineering for Allen Water Treatment Plant Control Panel and Programmable Logic Controller upgrades. Member Prang, your question.
Thank you. I just pulled this because it was a really large dollar item, and I wanted the public to hear the justification of what we're asking for. So just two questions. One, have we been experiencing problems, or we're doing upgrades as like regular maintenance of our systems to prevent future problems? And then two, in layman's terms, can you just tell us what the advanced control strategies this equipment will provide to the plant performance?
Yes, thank you, Council Member. And with me tonight is Ben Alexenberg, our first electrical instrumentation and controls manager at utilities at the water treatment plant. And essentially, I'm going to turn it over to him to talk about what this does and why it's important. And then I'll come back and answer the first question, which is where are we at and why are we doing it now? So I'm going to turn it over to Ben.
Great, thank you for your question. It was a similar question in Water Sewer Board. So I want to be able to explain a little bit about the technology that we're going to be implementing. We use the term, programmable logic controller. And as I explained at Water Sewer Board, it's nothing more than a computer. And so we're replacing these computers that operate our processes at the plant because they're 25 years old. So if you can envision trying to use a 25-year-old Windows XP computer today to do your work and to surf the internet and so forth, this is similar to what we're trying to replace at the plant. One of the reasons we're trying to replace those, is because they're so outdated. But the question is that, what are we doing in terms of processes, our advanced control strategies? For a long time, our processes have been antiquated. They're 40, 50, 60 years old at times, and we need to optimize those processes to get better control of them. So part of this project is to install additional instrumentation for pressure and flow control, so that we can more precisely operate the equipment without having to kind of play a guessing game at times. Our people at the plant are really great, been there a long time in operating this old equipment, and we'd like to provide them with better tools in order to do so. Data gathering capabilities that we do not have now. Cybersecurity capabilities that we do not have now, in order to protect our systems from people who want to hack them and really do harm to our city residents. So in providing those tools for our operations folks, we can provide cleaner and better quality water for our city residents, and also a better efficiently operating plant that we can have more confidence in, through the next 20 years when we have to do all this again. So hopefully that answers your question. Thank you.
So I'll add just some background on this. When we did the initial 2020 master plan for the water system, there was a high priority project that was identified, and it was called the filter interface panel. And the reason why it was identified, it's a PLC, programmable logic controller, for the filters. So one of the main core processes of the Allen plant. And when I first got to utilities and I was interviewing people, what I found out was that our PLCs were so old that they had to get the parts off of eBay in order to replace them as they went bad. So the manufacturers had long since abandoned servicing them and supporting them, at which point we were literally on eBay getting parts that were controlling the filters. And so that one became a priority. So in 2022, we fixed that one. It's brand new. So there are 9 more of these throughout the rest of the process throughout the plant that is what this project will do over the next 3 years to essentially do that, modernize those systems, but also increase the automation of the plant. Because one other piece of that filter interface panel was that we used to do the backwashes by a stopwatch, which is an old school way, non-modern way of ensuring the timing of our backwashes. So now those are programmed so that they happen automatically, and an operator can see them on the SCADA, the supervisory screen, and be able to do all this. So that's part of all this overall modernization of our technology at our plants.
Thank you to both of you. That was definitely understandable to me, so hopefully to the public. And also thank you for the passion that you have for the projects that you work on. You're smiling as you're answering my question, which means that you love this work. So totally appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. Any further questions from members of council? If not, can I get a motion to approve 9C4?
Move to approve 9C4.
Thank you, Member Praying. Could I get a second? Thank you, Member Russell. Any further comments? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
Aye.
Member Neunenkamp.
Aye.
Member Prang.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Member Ward.
Aye.
Member Wright.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Thank you so much, and thank you very much. Thank you both for that information.
If I could have just a minute, my cup seems to have sprung a leak, and I'm going to go grab a napkin and wipe up the mess and replace the cup. I'll be right back. If you want to continue on, I will.
Sounds good. We'll just move on. So there's no public hearing items For tonight, we're moving on to 11C1. This is the Neighborhood Engagement Program Manager, Madeline Hinkfuss, to discuss the 2024 Citizen of the Year. Is there anything to add tonight, Ms. Hinkfuss?
No, there's nothing to add. Last time I was here, you all discussed the Citizen of the Year candidates. So tonight we're asking you to pick a Citizen of the Year for 2024.
Sounds good.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hinkfuss. And we do have two candidates this year, two great candidates, Laura Cooper and Tiffany Kepler. I will open up to the floor if there's anyone that wants to nominate anyone or just have a general discussion about the nominees. But thank you. All right, anyone want to kick us off or go ahead, Member Noonan-Kemp.
I'm happy to renew my suggestion from when we had our study session on this topic, because I am really pleased to see that we have great nominees. Because this is Citizen of the Year, my recommendation would be that we recognize Ms. Cooper. I think that the work that the Englewood Holiday Store is doing and that it has done for several years is really powerful. The way that it serves our Englewood community is really wonderful. And then I would recommend that we also recognize the Girl Scout troop, the entire troop, rather than just one volunteer in the troop, at a later date as a collective group, not as Citizen of the Year. That's my preference, to have my cake and eat it too, to recognize more amazing people in Englewood, not fewer. And I would love support for that. So we'll see how it goes.
Thank you, Member Noonan-Kemp. Anyone else? All right, I too will be in support of Ms. Cooper tonight. Obviously, what's so great about Citizen of the Year is just seeing what members of the community are doing for the community. And so it's nothing against Ms. Kepler, and I appreciate all the work she's done. I'd like to get a little bit more information on how we could recognize the troop. I like the idea. It could be something that we could just recognize them in front of council. So maybe we could reach out to Ms. Kepler and see if that's something that we could do here in the later months of summer, and maybe recognize them at that point if they have time to come in and meet with us. But I will be in support of Ms. Cooper here tonight as well. Anyone else? Anyone else have a different opinion or anything that they want to add? All right. So yeah, I guess we can just get a motion on the floor, but
I move to recognize Laura Cooper as Citizen of the Year.
thank you very much, Member Noonan-Kemp. Could I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any further comments? Seeing none, can we go ahead and vote for Ms. Cooper as 2024 Citizen of the Year?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonan-Kemp.
Aye.
Member Prang.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Member Ward.
Aye.
Member Wright.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Ms. Hinkfuss, thank you very much. Will you be doing the communicating to Ms. Cooper?
Yes, we will let her know tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And then we will work with her to plan a celebration.
Perfect. And am I able to put the action item on your desk in terms of just trying to coordinate with Ms. Kepler and her troop as well?
Yes, I can
See
definitely
if
do
that's
that.
something we can do. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Hinkfuss. All right, moving on to agenda item 11C2, we have Director of Finance Kevin Ingles here to talk about the 2024 City of Englewood rate and fee schedule update. Good evening, Mr. Ingles.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Kevin Ingles, Director of Finance. We're here tonight. Also here tonight is Karen Montanez, our Chief Building Officer. We're requesting that Council approve a new after-hours inspection fee for the Community Development Department. They're proposing that to be $100 per hour. And this would allow inspectors on large projects to stay on site and complete the projects in a more timely manner. They're projecting that this could bring in between $30,000 and $35,000 for the rest of this year, and then continuing on in future years as well. This would be a fee that would have to be requested in advance so that scheduling could be worked out. And the $100 per hour would cover all the overtime that would be required, plus increase some. They would also provide some net revenue for the city.
Anything else, Director?
That's it.
All right. Any questions for Mr. Ingles? Go ahead, Member Noonan-Kemp.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. I understand why a developer might be interested in doing this. If a project is delayed, they want to expedite it, paying the extra fee might be worth it to move the project along. My question is, if you are a developer or someone in the city who cannot afford or maybe doesn't want to pay the extra price to go after hours, will having more after hours inspections decrease the ability to do in-hours inspections if you're just paying the regular rate? And how might those who are not paying the expedited rate be impacted by this change?
I'm going to let Ms. Montanez handle that.
Good evening. What this would allow us to do is regular projects would have their inspections during the week as normal. We're under a situation that these large projects are taking a large amount of time during the day. And so we're having to cut off inspections earlier in the day. So other people are having their inspections pushed a day forward. So this would free up the inspectors during the week to perform regular inspections as before.
So just to make sure I understand, your expectation is that this would speed up those who are paying for the after-hour inspections, maybe need additional, and also would potentially speed up those who are going through the regular process during the day because there's just less volume during the day.
Correct.
Okay, that's helpful. Thank you.
Member Pring.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation. I'm just wondering how we define larger projects and if there is a definition for that somewhere so that it doesn't fall on your staff as a kind of a subjective
It would be more
determination.
of the apartment complexes. In the past, Swedish has requested after hours, and we didn't do them because we didn't have a way to charge it or bill it. This would allow in the future if we have something like that. Larger projects would be ones that would take up, the inspectors could be on a job site for, 4 to 6 hours just doing one job. Whereas the smaller projects, usually they're just an hour at the most.
Okay, thank you.
Member Russell.
Thank you. So what hours of the day or night are we talking about?
It'll typically be on a Saturday so that the inspectors could arrive there in the morning, work through the day at one job site and get, quite a bit of work done in that time period.
Okay, and so would it involve projects like Swedish Hospital also?
Yes.
And are we doing more things in-house? Would this involve doing more stuff in-house?
We have very few times that we use outside inspectors. Typically, the only time we do is when somebody is out on vacation or in sick leave.
Okay, and so it'll mostly be Saturdays?
Yes.
Probably.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and could it involve more than one employee?
Yes, it would involve all the inspectors, so plumbing, mechanical, electrical, and building.
Okay.
And it would be $100 for each inspector per hour.
Okay, so, right, $100 an hour per, so if there's 6 inspectors, it's $600 an hour?
Correct.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much, I appreciate that.
Member Wright.
Thank you. Thank you. How many inspectors do we have on staff?
We have 3 full-time inspectors, and then we have a senior permit tech that also assists with inspections.
Okay, so we could possibly look at between 300 and 350 hours for the rest of this year.
So for every hour, or for every inspector, it would be $100 an hour. So if
Right,
they were out there for,
if I'm mathing right from the dollar amounts. My concern is, could we be looking at work fatigue if they're working 6 days a week? I mean, are we looking at that where?
And that would be up to, of how the schedules have been during the week and what the inspectors feel that they can do in a day.
And are any of them working more than 8 hours currently
No.
during the day?
No.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions for members of council? Go ahead, Member Russell.
Just one more. We wouldn't be working on Sunday, or they wouldn't be working on Sunday, correct?
No.
Okay, thank you.
All right, with that, can I get a motion to approve 11C2?
I move to approve 11C2.
Thank you, Member Russell. Could I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Any further comments? Seeing none, can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonan-Camp.
Aye.
Member Prang.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Member Ward.
Aye.
Member Wright.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
Ms. Montanez, thank you very much. Mr.
Thank
Ingles,
you.
thank you very much for your time. All right, up next is Director of Utilities, Peter Van Rye, and Deputy Director Sarah Stone here to talk about the contract for services with AGL Construction Company for service line material verification and replacement services. Good
Thank you,
evening.
Mayor and Council. So this is our last item of the night, and over the last several months, we've been before council a number of times working on this lead removal program that we probably started a year and a half ago in terms of really trying to develop a strategy. And this next item is really the culmination of all that, in that it's the item that identifies and with council's approval, puts in place the contractor to actually do the work, to execute the program. So we're very excited to bring this before you tonight. And I'm going to turn this over to Deputy Director Stone, who's done a lot of the heavy lifting on this, and she'll also introduce the rest of the team. This is definitely an exciting time for the city as it relates to this project and this program.
Thank you. So I would like to introduce our program management team. So Steve Price and Jasmine Gamboa are with Hazen and Sawyer. They are our program manager for the lead reduction program. They were also responsible for developing the community outreach items that we talked about in study session. And then they have been doing the very heavy lifting on this contract to get this before you today. So if I can get the presentation. Me. Some of our other items there. Okay. That's the study session item. There we go. Okay, so this is the timeline that we have been presenting for a little over a year now. So with the program kickoff back in March of 2023, we have since got field verification of for almost 400 homes. That developed our lead inventory. We have funding in place with the approval of the Drinking Water Revolving Fund loans and the $10 million of principal forgiveness. And then we've also made some code changes that allow us to use the funding and do the things for the program that we need to replace lead service lines. So then tonight, we will talk about the contract for construction and plan to begin construction in June 2024. So the lead reduction program goal is to replace all lead service lines within 5 years. Based on our current understanding of the inventory and with the contract before you tonight, we actually think we can do that in about 3 years. We have 11,000 lines in the system. About 19% of those are either lead or assumed lead. 74% are non-lead or assumed non-lead, and 7% of those are unknown. The scope of work is first to physically verify service line material. So we will pothole every property that was constructed prior to 1960. We'll do that over a course of a year. That will really provide us with cost certainty and just certainty in general of the program and the direction it's headed. We estimate that we will need to replace 3,000 lines or galvanized steel lines. And the contractor will be required to engage with customers, as we talked about during study session. They have to meet with every single property owner, describe the process, outreach to neighbors through our community meetings in order to make sure that everybody is very well educated on the program. The contractor will also install meter pits. So we will install meter pits at homes with a flat rate account, as well as those inside set meters, with the intention to come back later through city programs to install those meters or move them from indoor to outdoor. The selection process for the contractor proposals, or a request for a proposal was posted on January 18th, 2024. This was a qualification-based selection, and then we reviewed the prices after that. So based on qualifications, AGL was the contractor that was selected. They were also the most cost advantageous of the contractors that proposed. We had 4 contractors that submitted a bid. There's only 2 shown here. 2 of them had bids that were out of scale of ours. They were in the $10,000 per line range. So if we look at the left-hand graph there, AGL is the selected contractor. Their initial bid was $75.66 per line. That compared to Miller, which was one of our other contractors that bid on the project, at $8,400 per line. We pulled Denver's costs for 2024. Their main contractor is Apex, and they are currently at $8,100 per line. We asked AGL if they could have any, or if they could give us any additional costs, impacts if we gave them the whole project, if they were the sole contractor for our project. And they came back and reduced their bid per service line of about $400 for residential lines. So that it was very advantageous for us as we're developing this program. It's really probably a reflection of the market. AGL was a prime contractor for Denver Water for their program last year. So they had crews in place, they had equipment purchased, they were ready to go, and then they didn't get that as big of a chunk of Denver's program as they thought. They still are a contractor with Denver. So we benefited from that because we had our program lined up and ready to go for this year. And then that just shows on the commercial side, they do not increase their prices as much as other contractors have shown here. So the contract summary, we plan to begin construction in June 2024. We would have an annual contract term and then options for 2 renewals. So the program amount would be $28 million with a 10% staff managed contingency of $2.8 million for a total program authorization of $30.855 million. And then on the right-hand side, we show how that would work by calendar year. So we would issue those contracts each year. This year, we are issuing a contract for $9.35 million. And then the 2025 and 2026, with those prices held from AGL, that is what those contracts are anticipated to look like. We presented this contract to Water and Sewer Board last week, and they approved it. So with that, I'll open it up for any questions.
Thank you, Deputy Director. Any questions for members of council? Member Prang?
Thank you for the presentation. Just 2 questions. When AGL goes out to meet and do the pre-construction consultation with a resident, is that going to just be a verbal conversation, or will the resident be given some kind of work plan, like on a piece of paper that kind of describes the work that will be done on their property and what pieces the city will be addressing and what pieces they'll need to address?
Yeah, so they will walk through the entire process. In that acknowledgement form that was in the packet, there's the customer responsibilities and the city responsibilities. The contractor will ensure, and actually we'll also have with that contractor at those meetings, a city representative at each of those meetings. That's the inspector that's through the program that will be, but not necessarily a person on staff, but will be contracted through Hazen and Sawyer to address those questions, make sure all those, make sure the customer knows exactly what's going to happen, and leave any of the materials that are specifically from the contractor with the customer and ensure that they have a full understanding of what's going to happen on their day of the replacement.
Okay. So as they're talking, it will be documented, and then that work plan, a copy of it, will be left with them.
Correct.
Okay, great. And then the only other question I had was on page 23 of the contract. It discusses abatements under cleanliness and other factors. And it's silent on who's responsible to pay for those abatements, and I'm wondering if we want to leave that silent. I'm assuming that would be the homeowner that would be responsible to cover those costs, so I'm not sure that the contract should be silent on that.
Can either one of you address that, or? Oh, is. Oh, sorry, are you, so this is Jasmine Gamboa with Hazen and Sawyer.
Are you referring to the abatements of cleaning up the construction afterwards?
No, I think if there's like hazardous materials in the ground or anything like that, and it talks about it has to be cleaned up according to certain rules from CDPHE, et cetera, but it's just silent on who's responsible for the payment of that.
Oh, it is within the bid schedule that AGL is abiding by. It's the environmental bid schedule on the miscellaneous construction items. It is AGL's responsibility.
It's the what?
AGL's responsibility.
To pay for the abatement?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think if we know that clearly, that should be stated in the contract. I just think it's an area that's, abatement can cost a lot of money. So I think that we should be smart in being very specific on who's to cover that cost. A suggestion. Yeah.
Thank you, Member Prang. I think we may have to just look at the wording on it. So you said it was page 23?
It's page 751 of the packet and page 23 of the actual contract.
The
itself.
actual contract, okay, perfect.
So I think what we can do on that is, and thank you for bringing this to our attention. We'll go back and look at the specifics on it and ensure that that there is more clarity in terms of who's responsible, who's not responsible, so that we're not somehow unfairly expecting responsibility to go to one party or another. We'll make sure we get some clarity on that as part of the implementation of the contract.
I appreciate that.
Sure.
And reducing risk to the city.
Yes, well,
Or the dollar figure associated, so thank you.
Member Prang, I'm looking at the contract, so it says there's the larger bullet says contracts to exercise care and cleanliness when entering buildings and working on private properties, and then there's several sub-bullets there. To me, the way that I read that is that it does say the contract, since the contractor's on the heading, that they would be responsible for it. So I'm just wondering if we do need to maybe if we do just clarify just a little bit, but to me, it does read that the contractor would be, but just somehow just add a little bit more clarity on that. Okay, thanks for bringing that up. Member Wright, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, I just want me in clarifying here. So this is the cost just for the labor, not the cost of the copper and the meters and that type of thing, correct?
So this is the cost of the copper and all materials that were needed and equipment needed to install a copper line. The meters or in the meter pit, the meters are not included in this cost. The meter pit is included in this cost. It is funded from a separate source because it's funded by WIFIA, but it is all inclusive of what the contractor will do and purchase as a part of a line replacement.
Okay, for plumbing, copper's like gold. The rate could go way up and up and up. So I know there's a contingency in there and there's a nice little cushion, but that copper rate could, boy, depending on what the market is, and how much people are ripping off copper, I guess. So do we have enough of a cushion there, especially how much, I know 3,000 homes doesn't seem like a lot when it comes to copper, but it's still a lot. So I guess my big concern is that contingency for that copper, especially if the rate goes way up.
So that's a risk for the contractor. So they are setting their price, and they're maintaining that price certainty through this contract period of what we estimate to be 3 years. And so the ways that they can mitigate that risk on their end is to pre-purchase a bunch of copper. It's all the same material. So the great thing about what we were able to achieve when Sarah and the team went back to them and got them to look at their pricing was they brought it down by $400 a line, which translates to about $1.3 million over the course of the contract. So it's a significant reduction. And they're maintaining price certainty through this period, which we think through this 3-year period, we'll be able to address all the copper or all the lead service lines that we have that aren't, ones that people refuse to allow us to replace. So it's actually one of the benefits of the price certainty within this. The contingency is if, we find a whole bunch more that we weren't expecting through the potholing process, where we are adding more lines at the current, at all the current schedules. Yeah.
Okay, good. Hope you have good locks on those copper then. Okay, thank you.
All right, any further questions on 11B3, or sorry, C3? All right, and with that, can I get a motion to approve 11C3?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Member Wright. Could I get a second?
Second?
Thank you, Member Noonekamp. Any further comments? Well, I'll just say it's like we're getting close to just abating lead out of, or getting rid of lead in the pipe. So it's a big achievement for the Utilities Department. Thank you very much for prioritizing this for the city and just looking forward to construction beginning here later on this year. So thank you very much for all the work that's been done. All right, and with that, can we please vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
Aye.
Member Noonekamp.
Aye.
Member Prang.
Aye.
Member Russell.
Aye.
Member Ward.
Aye.
Member Wright.
Aye.
Mayor Sierra.
Aye.
Let the record show 7 ayes.
All right, thank you very much, Deputy Director. Thank you, Director, and to Hazen and Sawyer as well. All right, everyone, we're moving on to general discussion. I'll open with Mayor's Choice. Just that FYI, we don't have anything on the agenda next Tuesday, so there will not be any study session. So we won't be meeting next Tuesday. So our next meeting will be Monday, June 3rd. Also wanted to make people aware with Memorial Day coming up next Monday, I will be at the Veterans Memorial Day Tribute it's at the Bethany Lutheran Church in Cherry Hills off of Hampton, and I believe, is it Dahlia? I believe it's Dahlia. Anyway, it's, there's going to be a Gold Star breakfast. There's going to be Gold Star families in attendance. They just recognize, the sacrifices that, the ultimate sacrifice that our troops have made. And I've been going for the past 3 years. I know a few friends that are big supporters of this group here as well. But I'm hoping that you're able to join me. It starts at 10 a.m. The Gold Star breakfast starts at 8:30. But it is this Saturday, May 25th. So if you're able to attend, please do so. I believe that's all I have for tonight. I think there was something. Oh, there is. 9 a.m. that same Saturday, Centennial Park. It's the Bellevue train dedication. I will try to make it, so I haven't confirmed it yet with our Director of Parks and Rec. 9 a.m. So 9 a.m. on Saturday. But I will try to make it there as well. So just FYI for everyone in our city that wants to come out for the dedication of that. All right. Anyone else for Council Member's Choice? Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make one more reflection on the YouTube appearance. I don't think most council, agreed with me going on there and Steve going on there, and that's totally fine, But since Member Wright brought up her reasons for disagreeing with that, I just wanted to respond to a couple of those things. Number one, she didn't like that her name came up, and I get it, but at the same time, you're on city council now, and sometimes your name's going to come up. I didn't make any accusations or say anything disparaging, and it's just part of the thing. He played back a clip that had your name in it. I didn't say anything disparaging or offensive, so I just wanted to make sure the public knew that I wasn't out making accusations about other council members from that. And then the other thing that we discussed, an upcoming vote. We talked about what our study session, how it came down on public comment. And that's perfectly acceptable thing to talk about. So these are just things that we may disagree on, and I just wanted to put my opinion out there. I appreciate that everybody has a different opinion on it, but I think those were perfectly in bounds. Thank you.
Anyone? Member Praying, go ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to make a council member's request. I would like to know how much it costs to have additional security here tonight, separate dollar amounts for the security company, also for additional police presence. I would also like to know if any patrol officers were pulled from other duties to be here tonight for that additional security. And then also what specific circumstances led to the request for additional safety measures that were put into place for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Praying. Anything else? Go ahead, Member Russell.
I actually have a couple of things. I just want to give a quick update on the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee. They approved last week. It's a new, really, they call it educational, but it really is a new notice of violation because it's both educational. But the one thing that the committee decided, one of the newer members brought this up because they had gotten a notice of violation and then got a 24-hour notice about a different violation. So they would like to look into the policy, and this is on weeds and grass, of the notice of violation and address that. Because if one is for weeds in a certain area and they just blanket give it to you, and then the next time it's in another area, that's a different violation. So the board would really like to look at that. And so I think that's going to be on the agenda. I don't know that council really needs to weigh in on that. I think they may bring forth a recommendation, but it'll probably be a while. We're not meeting till July 17th because the June meeting would fall on Juneteenth. So we canceled the June meeting.
Thank you, Member Russell. So are we treating them as two separate violations in that case, or are they treated as one violation?
Well, code enforcement was treating it as one violation. And so the second one came as a 24-hour notice, and the person that got the 24-hour notice is handicapped to a certain extent and has to hire to get it done. So, and the original notice was taken care of. So the board wants to look at that. The other thing that I didn't ask before I don't really know, on Chris Lambert's, on his request about, I think that the city manager and attorney and council should look into some of these. Now, I will say this, he's a brand-new board member, I think, and it's Parks and Rec. Are you the liaison to Parks and Rec? So, I'm just wondering if some of these new board members need training also in how this works. But I also think he has a valid concern about not being able to weigh in on things. So I just would like to do a council request on that to see if there's things that need to be looked into so that the board has an opportunity to weigh in. And also there probably is an opportunity to train board and commission members also would help.
Member Russell, so the council request, is it the questions that he asked, but also just the process, like?
Right, the process, and it's very possible that this whole GO bond was on the table long before he got appointed, and so maybe things had gotten beyond that point before he actually got on the board. So I think we should just look into that whole timeline to see how that went.
Thank you, Member Russell. I should have asked him if that was his first meeting, the February meeting, because I think he may have been appointed in February or
I think
in January for February, so. But I'm not positive.
Okay, brand new, that's what I thought.
Okay.
Okay, so I think there's a couple things there that we need to look at.
Yeah.
And I think Deputy City Attorney McDermott is gonna look into that too.
Yes, we definitely are. Anytime there's any kind of accusation along those lines, we take that very seriously and we'll investigate it. And I do believe he was appointed in February because when he was speaking, I was pulling up the resolution for his appointment.
Deputy sorry, Deputy City Attorney, did you get a copy of the handout that he provided tonight?
I did not yet, but I was
Okay.
gonna ask Sarah. about
Okay,
it.
perfect. All right. Sounds good. Anything else, Member Russell?
I believe that those were the only things I had.
All right.
Thank you
perfect.
very much.
Thank you, Member Russell. Anyone else? Member Ward?
Just a clarification on Member Prang's council request. Some of the details that you requested concern security arrangements that were in place tonight, and some specific security concerns. Typically, those types of issues are held confidential, which is perfectly legal under CORA and under the Colorado Open Meetings Law. Would you consider discussing these matters in executive session as opposed to having a publicly distributed memo, which might give our authorization of force or other information specifically related to the security arrangements that are in place tonight that might compromise those security arrangements?
Yeah, absolutely. My goal is to make sure that all of us are safe and that our public who comes to attend our meetings are safe. So I'm happy to have the dollar amounts for the extra security be a public feature and to have that other conversation in executive session or whatever needs to happen. I just don't feel like I understand the specifics of, I was given tidbits of why we might have extra security, but you know, it's uncomfortable to be put in a situation where I don't understand what's going on, and I feel like it was driven by specific actions of maybe a couple of our council members, so I just want to be privy to why we have to spend additional costs to keep us all safe.
Certainly, that makes perfect sense, and obviously you have a right to that information, just like any of us would. So, Mayor, I thought that this was already on the agenda, that we were planning on having an executive session because there are some things that I would like to discuss as well in such a session, and I think that would be beneficial to everyone.
We can go ahead and add it to executive session. We haven't put it on the calendar just yet, so.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, anything else? All right, city manager's report. Tim.
Great, thank you, Mayor. I did have two quick things. So the first one is last week, we launched the 2.0 version of the Creative Crosswalk Signal Wrap program. So this is something that started a couple years ago that we're proud to bring back. The application deadline is July 1st, and there is a application and a robust website. So basically, this is about public art. We had 2 crosswalks and several signal wraps that were done, I think 2019 to 2020. Thanks to council support, there is funding for this year as part of the CIP, the Capital Improvement Program, under placemaking. Special thank yous to program manager Steve Ortega, as well as Amanda Arntz, Debbie Severa, and Christina Underhill for their work on this. Obviously, as you all know, public art has many positive impacts on placemaking, including safety and engagement in economic development. We will be asking for additional funding for this as part of the 2025 CIP, which I believe you saw. So this has been on social media and there's been a small campaign around it, but I just encourage you to share it with members of the community, that anyone can apply as long as they have an artist that's capable of doing the designs. And the second thing is, as you may have seen in the city manager's report last Friday, there were several folks from the Malley Center who had a great time doing a tea with tea and crumpets at a place in Colorado Springs. But I wanted to bring that up to highlight for you that we do hope to come before you sometime in the summer to talk about the new senior services division that we're developing in the Parks, Rec, Library, and Golf Department. Staff has been working to really focus on a recreation group as well as a senior group. We believe that the senior services division will meet the goals and programs that you have outlined in the senior services goal area in the strategic plan under community well-being. And we also will be seeking some additional funding from you as part of one of the supplemental budget requests for an active aging plan, which is actually part of your plan. So we believe that this is council direction for us to move in that direction and putting more supports around our senior programming. So we want to give you an update on that in the coming months, and that's it.
Thank you, City Manager Dodd. Any questions? Seeing none. All right, everyone, the meeting is adjourned. We'll see you all in 2 weeks. Have a great evening.